Ellie?
Emma Hollander, alternate.
Peyton McManus.
Michael Barron, town planner, and Daryl Ford and Julian Smith cannot make it tonight.
Paul Rasmussen?
Sally Tobias.
Heather Grant.
Robert Sullivan.
Gary Whittington.
And I would like to welcome Emma Hollander to the planning board for her first night. That actually gives us a full roster with 5 alternates,
Yay.
which I'm not sure, I guess we did do that
That's
once
full.
before,
Yeah.
but it is definitely, it's full. And considering that not 3 months ago, I believe we were down to 1 alternate briefly, it shows quite a bit of interest in keeping the board full, and I appreciate that from the community. All of our regular members are here tonight, so we don't need to seat any alternates. Approval of the agenda. I would like to make one minor modification to the agenda. I'd like to take item 10, new state laws, and place it in front of the public hearings. And I'm doing that just because there's a few comments I'd like to make about it that I think would be of general interest. If there's no objections.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda as just amended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Town planners report.
Our next meeting is in 2 weeks on January 28th, but we don't have anything on the agenda yet. We do have the conservation subdivision that's, I think, is the next item, so if we don't have other things, perhaps we could take that up then. Update on a few projects. We will be having finally the pre-construction meeting for the crossings, Garris Drive subdivision, hopefully next week, and they'll start work on the site. Dunkin' Donuts, as you know, was approved. We're hoping they're going to start demolition on the building on Dover Road soon. Riverwoods is proceeding along, pursuing their state approvals. And lastly, just want to note that in last week's Friday updates, there was a great recap of 2025. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's worth taking a look at. And that's all I have.
I would, on the Dunkin' Donuts thing, I did see surveyors this past week. I guess it was last weekend or late last week, doing their work on the Dunkin' Donuts property.
They're also clearing trees yesterday.
Yeah, they cut the trees in the back.
Because we can't hear you very well.
Yeah, can you turn it up, please?
And put your thing closer.
I cannot hear you guys.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions for the town planner? All right, are there reports from board members who serve on other committees?
Town council.
Town council?
Town council met on Monday. It was a very short evening. I don't think I've ever actually gotten home at 9 o'clock on a Monday night for a town council meeting. So it was a very short agenda. And we did have the resolution 2026-01 recognizing the Durham Housing Task Force. So we know that there's an awful lot of work that's gone in over the years, and it was sunsetted last year, and it was just a resolution thanking everyone for their hard work. It was also really great to get an award for Durham. And if you want to just say a little bit about the award?
Yeah, the Durham Housing Task Force was given an award by the Greater Seacoast Workforce Housing Coalition for our work for the overlay, the Workforce Housing Overlay District, and the work we've been doing.
So that was really, really special. We did some committee appointments, and we had a presentation from the Oyster River Cooperative School District, Dr. Robert Schatz, talking about the budget and some projects that they're working on that they want to put on the ballot for funding. So I would say it's not a lot of detail, so if you're interested in anything going on with the Oyster River School District, to listen to that on DCAT. And we also did pass, adding to the new business was a resolution 2026-02, which was regarding guns at UNH. There's a bill going around up in state level to allow guns on campus, rather than what the normal rule is now, is that a student can have a gun, but they have to have it locked at the, they can have it in like a locker at the police department so that they can come and check it out, you know, if they're doing target shooting or hunting or whatever. But they're not allowed to have them on, you know, on their selves and in dorms or in the classrooms. And there's talk that that might be a good idea, and we disagree with that position. So that's pretty much the whole evening.
Just an update on that. It moved out of committee today with an affirmative vote.
Yeah.
Peter, were you at that, may I ask, were you at that hearing by any chance?
No, it just popped up on my phone as I walked in here this evening.
Do you know if it was a straight party line vote at the committee?
Let's see.
And I ask, this is relevant because this would have a lot of impact on UNH, our university, so a lot of people are very concerned about this.
It doesn't immediately say.
Thanks.
It was, it was part of the news cycle on the evening news. All right, that was town council. Any questions for Heather? All right, Energy Committee met. The, nothing really active right now relevant for us. They're talking about, you know, since they've passed us the EV regulations, they're sort of now asking themselves what's next for them. So they're working through that. They're doing a lot of educational support to various groups around elementary school, stuff like that. Of interest to general public, they did pick up a couple of those infrared heat thingies that you can use to find drafts and stuff in your house, and they're now loanable at the library. There's 2 of those. They are kind of cool. You can tell if in this room, that door over there is a really, really big cold spot. Like I said, for anyone in the public who's looking at seeing where they might need to deal with drafts or poor insulation in their house, you now have that accessible at the library. They're pretty easy to use. And for IMAC, IMAC was really happy with the coverage they were able to get for the Christmas tree utilization to the goat farm that they held last, it wouldn't have been last Saturday, it would have been the Saturday before last. And they also had, NHPR covered it. So they got a news blurb on the radio that was, I believe it ran Tuesday.
It was just this past Saturday.
It was this past Saturday.
Right, and it
Okay.
ran on Monday morning.
That's right, yep, okay. You were there, weren't you?
On Saturday I was, yeah.
Yes.
Guess there were a lot of happy goats that afternoon.
All right, any other committees?
The Conservation Commission is working through a deliberate process to figure out what to do about all the setbacks on wetland and shoreline, and that will take many months, I expect. They're meeting in small subgroups, and those meetings are noticed.
Okay, very good. All right, we're now coming to public comments. If you have public comments that aren't associated with our public hearings tonight, you can make them now. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No hands up.
Thank you. Introduce yourself and
Hey there, Bruce Fenton, Durham Point. How long do you have?
5 minutes
5 minutes,
roughly
okay,
for
great.
this section.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. You know, Bruce Fenton, I said it, Bruce Fenton, Durham Point. You'll probably take offense at this. I hope you'll listen to me anyway, won't just tune me out. But, you know, I feel like I like to say some things that I think a lot of people have on their mind and for various reasons are afraid to say. I watched every meeting that you've had for the last 2 years, and, you know, I'll be honest, and I'm trying to say this in a polite, I'm not trying to purposely make waves, but the way I see it, I mean, it's very disappointing. And I know not all of you were there. Somebody, I believe it's your first night here, so it's certainly not everybody was part of these decisions. But, I mean, I found it very, there's no polite way to say it. I think it's a bit of, you know, petty tyranny. I mean, it's very, very heavy-handed. We have a very, very bad reputation, this town. And I saw person after person, my neighbors coming in there. I saw a woman who, she's practically begging you. And by the way, everybody's very, very, very polite because they're afraid of you. You know, they're afraid of you. They're coming in asking you for something. They're not doing it because it's voluntary. 0 people would ever come and see you if you didn't have the power of force. So I saw a woman, she's you know, begging you for like a 5-foot variance on her swimming pool. And I saw another couple, I don't know them, but they seem like very nice people, the kind of people I would want as neighbors. They had spent $700,000 on their place, and they're asking for this little minor change. Deny, 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 deny. I saw so many of these things denied. And I'm scratching my head. I'm saying, what is going on in your head? I think that you've lost the forest for the trees a little bit. I really do. I think that this group was created many, many years ago for the purpose of protecting other people's property, protecting people's lives, safety. But I think the impression I got from watching it is that at least some of you feel like it's your duty to say no, or your duty to flex power, or
Are
something
you,
like
sir,
that.
you're not thinking of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, are you? We have not been involved with any swimming pools or variances. That's the
This
Zoning
is the
Board.
planning board, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's 2 different ones?
Yes.
All right.
We don't do variances here.
What do you do here?
Site plan review, subdivisions.
All right, but if
Zoning
I'm correct,
changes.
you have a thing right now that where the town people have got to come in here and sort of beg and plead for you to allow, by your grace, to have the increase in the height of buildings from 2 stories to more. Is that correct? That's on the agenda tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. The sort of, you know, continued heavy-handed, I mean, why is it your business is you know, my thought on it. You know, and what informs my opinions on this is, you know, I have a core belief in peace and not doing violence against people who don't do violence to you or in defense. And that seems simple. I think on the surface, most people would agree with that. It's the kind of thing you would teach your children. But your dictates are backed by exactly that. It's backed by the power of government and the power of force and the power of courts and the power to ultimately, you know, send armed men to somebody if they build a building of the wrong height. And I think that should be kept in mind. You know, that is, you know, sort of bullying type of behavior. You're basically saying you have authority because of these rules, and that authority is backed by force, and that's bullying. I mean, it's a form of bullying. As I said, it's not a voluntary thing. No, your legitimacy and the reason that every single person is in this room, no matter what side they're on, is because you have that power of the might. You have that power of force. You have that ability to do harm to other people, to say, no, no, no. How dare you? You can't go build that thing. We're not going to let you build that. We're the authority. And I just think that that's unfortunate. I think that's, you know, not the New Hampshire way. It shouldn't be the American way. And I don't think that things would be worse if you lightened up a bit. And I think things would be a lot better. I think that, you know, for the matter that you have before you tonight, I think that this could be a very, very vibrant college town. And there's a lot of restriction that makes it hard for people to do things here. And I think that could be improved on a lot. If you let people have more freedom, I think you'd have a much more vibrant, a better economy, happier people, and you'd have a better overall situation for the town. And I think that's a moral and ethical way to do things. So thank you very much. Good evening.
Anyone else?
Good evening. So my name's Al Graziano. I live on Durham Point Road. I'm a new resident here. Moved here back in September. Went through quite the process building my home through the last 18 months. But I'm here to speak because I'm a restaurant developer. Been building restaurants in New England for the last 9 years. And to kind of just piggyback what Bruce had said, people in my industry don't want to build here. You know, I moved here with the idea that, you know, it can't be that bad. You know, let's be a part of an awesome college town, a vibrant college town. And ever since moving here, I can agree with everything he has said. It's been nothing but harassment, bullying. You know, no one even wants to have a conversation with me throughout my entire build-out process of my home. And you got Michael Barrett tried to extort me in my own backyard. You know,
That's quite humorous. Thank you for
I know it's funny to
adding
you.
some jest to our meeting.
I would love to add to the business community here. You know, I've built 200 restaurants in the country and worked with various city halls, town halls, different zoning boards. I'll work with anybody, but it's simply impossible, and it's not just me who believes that. It's many other business owners in my industry that have had the same troubles and concerns opening here. I'm hoping it can change. That's why I'm here. You know, obviously I've had a rough go the first 18 months of living here, but I do want to work with you guys. I do want to work with the town. I'd love to build a restaurant close to the university like I have in the rest of New England without any issues. I'm a rule follower. You know, some people may not believe that, especially these two. But I wanted to introduce myself, give you my comments, show support to the entire town, and hopefully see some change here. So, thank you.
Are people supposed to give their name and address, whether they're
He did.
residents
Yes.
or where they live?
Yes.
He did give it.
Al Graziano,
Where?
Durham Point Road,
That's not enough.
361.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Come by anytime.
All right, is that it? That looks to be it. We'll move on then. We're moving on to item 10 for new state laws. Proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance to comply with recently adopted state laws affecting land use. The amendments pertain to municipal restrictions on dwelling units, accessory dwelling units, and multi-unit residential and commercial land. The planning board initiated a set of amendments which was forwarded to the town council. The town council has sent back the proposal with one recommended change. And what we're here for tonight is to schedule a public hearing on the draft with the town council's change. So I'd like to schedule that for our next meeting on January 28th. All right, we don't need a motion on that. But what I do want to, I'm going to, let's see. There we are. I'm just going to plug this in so everybody can see it.
Oh, great. See if this works. Let's see if this
Oh,
works.
it works
Try it
surprisingly too well in this direction, and then it's annoying in the other direction. So, let's see, beep, 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 beep. I just need to wait for the green light to get solid and we'll be good. When I tested this earlier, it all worked.
Maybe my drinks.
Sometimes it just takes a little.
Oh, it's
There.
working.
No?
How about that? Okay.
Do we actually have access to that?
Now, it's
I mean, that,
And
hey,
move it
that's
around.
terrific. I didn't know
New
that.
toy, new
first
toy.
night.
I just learned about it this morning.
Excellent.
All right, so
Wireless.
So just to show what was going up for public hearing, so so we had sent the third line from the top there, the residence multi-unit, we were recommending to the town council that it be permitted in all of the research industry zones as well as Codes Corner. Which is, you know, was a requirement of the council, of the new state laws. The state make it mixed use or require it be mixed use. And the town council decided to take advantage of that and sent back a proposal where they X'd out the multi-unit and made it permitted as mixed use only in these zones, which are Coe's Corner, Office Research, Moodor, Orly, and Durham Business Park. So that's what would be going up for the public hearing. And what I want to point out is that this is effectively a poison pill to make sure nothing that gets developed at all. You know, it's the kind of thing that our ordinance has enough poison pills in it. We don't need to keep adding more. Because the last thing we really need to do is try to create more commercial businesses outside of our downtown. We're trying to get our downtown to be vibrant, right? So why would we be building more storefronts out in random places? So this is, like I said, that's sort of my comments. I was kind of surprised this came back to us, but we'll have our public hearing at our next meeting and make a decision on it. All right. Now I'm going to. Oh, now in order to turn that off,
Do you have to do something else?
I have to turn this box over here.
It's easier to just have
The wireless dongle. Instead of having to have the HDMI cable, you only drag the HDMI cable.
We'll do that on the 28th then?
Yes.
2 weeks?
28th. All right. Our next item will be item 8. Proposed zoning amendment to change 3-story height limit. An amendment to remove the 3-story height limitation in a section of the Central Business 1 District where there is a maximum of 3 stories allowed. The original amendment would allow for 4 stories by right and 5 stories by conditional use. The revision to the original amendment prepared by the Town Council would allow for 4 stories with either a pitched roof with dormers or a 4th story with a setback and no 5th story.
Paul, before we get into this public comment on this, how do we make sure that we don't cover the same topic over and over? Because they're very related.
Well, my suggestions would be that if someone has plans on making the same comments for both public hearings, they could ideally just say, this applies to both public hearings tonight when they get up the first time, and that would save us a ton of effort.
or if they're here just for one or the other. Just go
Yeah,
during
I
that
mean,
time.
in my mind, the comments tonight are relevant for both public hearings. You know, whether it's stated for one or the other, they still end up being relevant for both. We won't take action on them, on any of them, until after both public hearings are done. Does that seem reasonable?
That makes sense.
Richard, you have.
Yeah, and perhaps for the benefit of the public and members of the planning board, we could just describe that the first public hearing is pertaining to 4 stories with either pitched roof with dormers or 4th story with a setback, right?
Versus the other one.
The
how would you-
second public hearing is 4 stories and a 50-foot height limit.
For the
By right.
entire CB1.
Yep.
Okay.
And then just one on that. It's quite possible that people may want to speak on both of them because they may want to advocate for one, and then on the second, they may be in opposition, or the reverse, or they may advocate for both of them. You know, so I guess I wouldn't want to put any restriction on as we have one public hearing. If you made your comment on that, I wouldn't want to say you're not allowed or provisioned to make it on the second, because you might have a completely different perspective. So, you know, I guess it would be nice to consolidate, but it might not be feasible in all instances, I guess, is what I would think. Yeah. And then in terms of process, we will have both public hearings and then we'll deliberate
Yes.
on both.
I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, shall we open the first public hearing? And that, why did that go on again?
I don't know.
That green button, Peter, should be pushed off. Hold it down until it goes off again. Thank you. All right, I'll move that we open the first public hearing.
Second that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, who would like to be first? And, all right, I got 3 people who popped up at the same time. I'm going to go with Roger, and then, yes, and then you, sir.
Good evening. Roger Hayden, 4 Lexington Street, Dover, New Hampshire. Concerning both proposals, I'll combine my comments. 4 stories at 50-foot height limit. I think the goal of the planning board has been, among other things, of having more of a mixed age group living in downtown Durham. That would not necessarily mean people my age living there retired. It might mean grad students, new people to the university, more of the 30-somethings living downtown. 4 stories with a 50-foot height limit would allow the builder to make more spacious apartments. Something with more than an 8-foot ceiling, a little higher, a little more open. It would allow the space to be used a little bit more family-friendly, if you might say. I know some of the apartments that have been new ones in the town have a living room, but doesn't even have a window on the outside. So giving the developer or the builder a little more ability to configure apartments that make it more friendly might start the process of getting more mixed age groups living downtown. That would benefit the downtown in many ways, and making it, it would calm down a lot of the student activities, because you have people that are older walking around downtown too. So that's where I stand. I know it's 4 stories, but I think 50 feet, give the developer or the builder a shot at making them more friendly, family-friendly, 30-somethings friendly apartments. If you're gonna restrict the builder to cram it into the space for height or view or whatever it is, chances are it's gonna be built with one thing in mind: max out every square foot with student rentals, and that isn't what's going to help the downtown from a mixed age bracket filtering in to give the town more of a calmer atmosphere in the central business district. So as high as you can go, 4 stories, 50 feet is where I stand on both of them. Thank you.
Dennis.
Good evening. I'm Dennis Meadows. My home is 34 Laurel Lane in Durham. On DCAT, I've listened to hours and hours of council and planning board conversations about the proposed change in allowed building heights. I haven't previously spoken on this issue because I consider both amendments to be totally irrelevant to what you ought to be attending to. The Housing Task Force was formally established by the council 4.5 years ago. Throughout its discussions, 2 goals have prevailed. 1, make more affordable housing available in town. 2, revive the central business district. Both goals have received wide and enthusiastic support. Both are important to Durham. They were both reaffirmed by Todd in his memo on August 7, 2024, and they were mentioned in this meeting as recently as the last time you assembled. Sadly, the data show that both efforts have totally failed. In 2021, when the task force was formed, the median house price and sales price in Durham was $645,000. Now, one report estimates it's $844,000. When Suzanne and I moved to Durham, the town had many features that made it an attractive place for us to live and to shop. A drugstore, hardware store, bike shop, traditional swimming pool, faculty club, UNH Celebrity Series, Zyla's, Mill Pond Center for the Performing Arts, the New England Center, Grange Art Classes, Young's. They're all gone. Every one of them has disappeared. You tell people we can reverse these trends by allowing the height of a few buildings in the central business district to go from 4 stories to 5 by right. I hope you don't really believe that. None of the people in Durham believe it because it simply isn't true. Housing prices will continue to rise and the central business district will continue to languish until we acknowledge and accommodate to 5 inconvenient truths. Number 1, everyone wants more low-cost housing in Durham. It's just that nobody wants it in their own neighborhood. Number 2, you can't depend on private developers to enhance the attractiveness of Durham. Their main goal, obviously, is to maximize their own profits. Roger Hayden made that clear in his comments at the last meeting. He said, quote, "I can sell the building. Who gets it? I don't care. I'm leaving." It's a perfectly rational opinion for a private developer. Number 3, Durham has no chance to compete directly with Dover, Exeter, or Portsmouth as a shopping destination or as a site of low-cost housing. We need to distinguish ourselves in other ways. The 4th truth, Durham is facing existential problems. There's no simple, quick, cheap way to reverse its decline. We're in a lower business, higher taxes, death spiral. We need to come up with some other special way to make Durham unique. Complicated problems require expert solutions. If you ask an amateur to solve a complicated problem, you're going to get an amateur solution. And if you try to compensate by assigning 10 amateurs to solve the problem, they're still going to give you an amateur solution. Please quit diddling around with minor zoning changes and amateur committees. Recognize that Durham needs some major new ideas to sustain it as a unique, attractive, financially viable community for the second quarter of the century. Find some new ideas and try to make them happen. If you do, you'll have lots of help. I can promise you. I personally raised over $500,000 in this town from people who were happy to give money to help build the Kenny Rotner Bridge. They were happy to give out their money without return for a project they thought would improve Durham. Those people are still here. They're still looking for ways to improve Durham. Several of them have professional experience with urban revitalization. They've offered help to enlist here. They've done it for dozens of other towns. Why not have them help us here in Durham? Enlist them and other experts in your effort. Identify Durham's unique strengths rather than trying to make changes that at best will make Durham just a pale imitation of Portsmouth. Peyton and Julian Lyons spoke the truth at the last planning board meeting. They both said, we can't revive Durham until we find ways to attract people downtown. We have so far done exactly the opposite by locating crucial facilities on the periphery where they pull people out of the central business district. Police department, library, town hall, recreation department. Instead, let's create something that gives a special appeal and pedestrian traffic towards central core. There are a lot of ideas I could mention. I don't have time to do it. I'll just give one example. Make Jenkins Court into a pedestrian zone. Put the cars down in Torrington and use all that empty space around there to build a community center, which offers enough activities that people would actually be attracted to staying downtown. To save Durham, we need to think big and think outside the box. Of course, every major initiative will draw criticism, all will pose problems, none of them is certain to work. But a constructive plan would find here great political and financial support, rather than the opposition you continue to face with your amendments. And you'd be spending your time on something that might actually work. Thank you.
Oh, that's getting annoying.
Have some handouts, if you please pass them around.
I think we have.
May need to share.
We all have copies of this.
Anyone not have a copy?
I don't.
Yeah, please
I'll
take
take
a copy. Durham Planning Board. My name is Tom Daly and I reside at 190 Piscataqua Road. Tonight I'm speaking to you on behalf of myself, Mike Lerman, Ben Balke, Don Galini, and Michael Morneau. From the period starting January 6th to January 13th, which is only 7 days, we have collected the support of 105 community members for a petition for a resilient downtown, aligning Durham zoning with economic goals. I ask others attending tonight supporting our petition to please stand at this time. Our petition, in support of both CB1 proposals, asks the Planning Board to do the following. Adopt one of the central business CB1 zoning amendments offered by the Town Council and Planning Board respectively. Both amendments would minimally allow 4-story buildings in all of the CB1 zone, including Main Street and Madbury Road areas now limited to 3 stories. A 4-story allowance in all of CB1 would not be inconsistent with other buildings in the downtown and would provide more options for potential redevelopment. 2, utilize design and review tools such as conditional use, architectural review, and contextual design standards to set direction and expectations that encourage projects to enhance downtown character and align with New England architectural style and aesthetics. And 3, avoid setting rigid architectural mandates such as prescribed roof shapes, but allow flexibility in design approaches, such as stipulating the use of varied roof forms that achieves their overall desired architectural aesthetics, such as breaking up building mass. Our intended purpose is simple and delivered in 3 bullet points. Foster business vitality. Allow enough density for local businesses to thrive through increased downtown residency, foot traffic, and commercial occupancy. 2, enhance long-term resiliency. Utilize smart growth principles that help Durham's downtown be regionally competitive and economically sustainable. And 3, broaden the tax base. Enable development that meaningfully contributes to our tax base growth and helps mitigate the rapidly rising tax burden on residents. As an element of our electronic petition signature process, we included a comment field. I'm going to read to you verbatim a selection of comments made by peers in our community. 1, I like the simplification while achieving growth opportunities while maintaining downtown charm. 2, to make Durham a more attractive location for investment while limiting potential sprawl. I would like to see Durham's effort going towards prioritizing development that attracts young families and young professionals, and I believe that building up, not out, can be a successful strategy to do so. I would echo the sentiments of the urbanist movement to include gentle density into town zoning. 3, I support the proposed zoning amendment because Durham urgently needs more housing, and allowing 4-story buildings in the central business district is a practical and sustainable way to achieve that. Increasing development flexibility will make better use of valuable land near the town center, where people can live close to campus, jobs, and services. This kind of compact mixed-use growth supports climate-resilient planning by reducing dependence on cars, lowering emissions, and encouraging walkable neighborhoods. Given the ongoing demand for housing near UNH, our local planning policies should reflect these realities by fostering development that strengthens both community vitality and environmental sustainability. 4, I've seen firsthand, both professionally and through my time living in Durham, how balanced commercial growth can strengthen a community, support local businesses, and help shift the tax burden off residents. My family has been engaged with this town for over a decade, and as an alumna of UNH, I believe that allowing appropriate density, building height, and smart development is essential to creating a vibrant, sustainable downtown for future generations. And point 5, Durham needs to make its downtown commercial zone more attractive to investors. These amendments appropriately balance that opportunity with preservation of its small-town character. The community is coming to the planning board with a real and serious ask for your support as a step in economic development in the CB1 district. We hope that you will seriously consider our petition when evaluating both CB1 zoning amendments tonight. With thanks on behalf of myself, Mike Lerman, Ben Bulkey, Don Galini, and Michael Morneau. Thank you.
Gail Kelly, 11 Garish Drive. I heartily endorse Dennis Meadows' comments of a few minutes ago. And I have said this to the board as well, that we are approaching this from the wrong angle. Building height has very little to do with creating a vibrant downtown. And there is nobody around this table who has the expertise to spark downtown revitalization. It's time for some humility in this town and enlisting the expertise of experts who are vetted, not people who just walk in and say, I'm an expert, listen to me. Now, the one thing that has not been addressed in all of these discussions, and including in Mr. Hayden's desire to see mixed-age occupants of the apartments to be built on Main Street, is that no age group but UNH students will live in those buildings because there's no place for people to park. There's been no discussion of on-site parking for these buildings. Now, I don't care if you build a building with 10-foot ceilings. You're not going to attract someone to a so-called luxury department if they can't own a car. Where are they going to put it? Right now, in Portsmouth, rents on luxury apartments projected for 2026 are $3,100 to $4,000 for a two-bedroom apartment. That's with on-site parking. In older buildings, a two-bedroom apartment goes for $2,000 to $3,000. That's less than what a developer will get, or an owner of an apartment building, when the rent is based on the number of beds you can put into that apartment. At $1,000 per bed, it makes more sense to build that kind of an apartment than to build a luxury apartment with no on-site parking. People in this town really care about this town. That's why they're all here. So let's pay attention to them and go about it in a measured manner. Yes, there's a lot of pressure on this board and on the town council because of the tax bills that just went out this year. Taxes have gone up. And those with the bigger houses on more choice property have seen the highest increases. Well, that's what happens in a city or a town or a state that bases its income on property taxes alone. So we have lots of challenges, and you do have a lot of pressure on you. And some of it has been nasty, and I think that's regrettable. But let's have some humility and say, okay, we're going to go about this in a measured way and look at a whole. How do we create a vibrant downtown? It's not a matter of putting in buildings and filling them with people. People aren't going to be attracted to those buildings. Thank you.
Al Holland, 32 Frost Drive, Durham. I was one of the 10 amateurs that was on the Housing Task Force that proposed the 4-story and 5 with conditional use. And actually, I was on the town council when we addressed height requirements, and I can't remember how long ago that was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And this really feels like Groundhog Day. We're back to the same conversation. The downtown hasn't changed at all. The economics have drastically changed. UNH is facing significant financial headwinds. They've required 2-year students on campus. It really softened the market. The cost of building has gone up exponentially, and there is absolutely no money from the state to help you. And so, as I look at this and I look at the proposals, I'm against the town council proposal that came in, which was the 4 stories with 2 roof options, and I'm in favor of the second option, which will be your second public hearing. Look, we can talk a lot about design, which is really important, but designs which are economically not viable are a waste of time, and which is what has happened. And we cannot, as a community, afford another decade of watching our downtown stagnate. I think the people who are angry, who are talking about their tax bills, and I've heard about failed policies. First of all, in terms of parking, the town spent $2 million to buy 66 Main Street, which would provide the parking which is required to build downtown. Additionally, the state mandated that you can only have 1 parking spot per unit, reducing it to make it more economically viable to develop. So in terms of developing the downtown, look, you cannot sprawl out. It is a very small space. If you build 1 millimeter outside of the existing footprint, you are facing some significant stormwater issues, which will add dramatic cost to building. So while it's great to bring forward some ideas that look really great, if they're not economically viable, it's a waste of time. And we've wasted a decade downtown. And we've looked at our neighbors around us that have all built during a time when interest rates were lower, building costs were lower, and there were economic incentives. We missed all that. And now we're facing a really, really challenging time. So I think developers are not the enemy. The development process is supposed to be a collaborative process. And I've heard a lot about business owners trying to maximize their profits. Of course they need to make money. If they can't make money, they're not going to build. But that does not mean that they're bad partners in terms of working in the community. And we've seen examples of good development in Durham where they are good partners. So I think we need to provide the tools for development to occur. And I think that the second one, which is the 50-foot height, is a reasonable requirement. It does not mean that that alone will get us the development, and you're correct. When you talk about affordable housing, zoning alone, and all experts will tell you this, is not enough to build affordable housing. It requires subsidies when you go below market. And we look at downtown, which is an exceptionally challenging place to build. We need to be able to think about how we do that in terms of incentives. It's really challenging right now because since we wasted so much time, a lot of the incentives that we'd use have dried up. And if you try to use 79E or you try to expand the TIF, well, it's really challenging when you just pass a budget that's 13%. You don't have the economic wiggle room anymore to do it. And so I think you need to give some consideration to 2, which is the 50-foot. I think it is a very good idea. I don't think right away that'll get a development, but at least it gets it at the table. Thank you.
Jeff Berlin, 3 Cowell Drive. I'd just like to respond to a few things I've heard already. The cost of housing increasing, what it has is because your Federal Reserve has printed the money, trillions of dollars. So unfortunately, we're operating within that system. We can't do anything about that. But what we can do is we can purposely build things, and we can also just work with supply and demand, basic supply and demand. Everyone wants to say workforce housing, affordable housing. If you're not subsidizing it, which I am absolutely not in favor of, you have to build out the units to affect the supply. This is what the last housing bill that I did in Concord was for, was to help that with this town. I think that we're on our way there. The other thing too is that, Paul, I know we've talked about, I think Peyton, we talked about it maybe a month ago, was that another main issue that you have in the zoning, besides these height issues that we're talking about, is that if you're trying to build housing for people who are just coming out of college and young couples, you can't be building 3 and 4 bedroom units. And so in your zoning, you have requirements where you have the ability to build very few units, which means the bedroom counts are going to have to be up. So if you want to have people stop building housing for students, you have to change the amount of units that you're going to allow within a building. I'm currently working on one, Paula, as we've discussed. I think that one of the things that you can also do is there's strategic lots around town, in the downtown core or abutting it, touching it, that you can fit a ton of units on if you would just work with the individuals like myself to do so. However that is, whether it's providing just the ability to meet with Michael, which I know you are, with Audrey, which we've already done, but instead of just sort of showing us what they are, maybe coming to us saying, hey, I'm already working on talking to Peyton or talking to Sally or talking to Heather about this plan, and this is the feedback that we already have, so that I don't have to go running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to figure out what do these people even want. I'm already $5,000-$6,000 into this thing. I don't have anything for it, and I'm not sitting here bitching about the process I've done. I'm just saying I wish that we could improve it in the way that we communicate with not just me but everybody. I'm absolutely in favor of the highest that anyone wants to build. So I'm probably not the one to take as the opinion, because I want whoever wants to build as high as they want to go, I guess within reason, 8 stories, 9 stories, to do it. If they can make it work, God bless them. My setbacks are parking. People are like, oh, we have to have requirements or no requirements. I say, if a developer wants to build something with no parking for 60 people, I wish them luck. I don't have any interest on doing that. You need parking. You need laundry in your facilities. You need utilities included. You need walkability to downtown. And there are opportunities in front of you to do that if you just let people work with you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Daniel Day from 89 Baghdad Road. I just want to comment. I believe that we do need to have discussions about raising the height limit in downtown. I did not see that petition that was circulated, but everything I heard based on what was said are things that I agree on. I believe that, maybe we shouldn't stop at 4 stories or 5 stories with conditional use. I think we got to realize that, we are not a small town anymore. We are a large town that is slowly growing into a city. Currently, we stand in the shadow of a university that has an average building height of probably 4 stories with buildings as tall as 10 stories. And, that university is becoming less and less relevant, and it's time that Durham adopts its own identity independent of the university, and we need to start thinking about what our future is going to be like should the university significantly downsize, as they're already talking about closing buildings on campus already. I believe that you should let developers, and working with the planning board, talk about what is best for the projects and where they should go. I definitely think parking is an issue that should not be ignored, nor is public transportation. Those are all things that we should have. Parking, drivable roads, and good parking and good public transportation are things that a healthy community has. I like the idea that was floated earlier about making Jenkins Court a pedestrian plaza. I think that would do cool things to the downtown. I think the discussion definitely needs to be beyond building height. That's just part of the larger discussion, but how we can make downtown more viable in general. Although I do caution with pedestrian plazas, as beautiful and inviting as they are, that can lead to accessibility issues for people looking to get close to businesses without walking very far, or for the load-ins and load-outs of equipment and furniture and things like that. And so those are pretty much the big things that I just wanted to comment on tonight. Thank you for taking your time.
Hello, my name is Mary Alice Schatzel. I live at 5 Bayview Road with my wife, Gwendolyn Howard. Lynn would be here if she could, but she had a conflict, so I am representing the two of us. We are both opposed to the 50-foot second hearing. We recognize the importance of affordable housing. We agree with Dennis about the vitality of downtown, and we're discouraged with the process that we've observed. And so I'm going to read a letter that Lynn wrote that kind of expresses our perspective. Dear Planning Board members, over the past 6 months, the Housing Task Force and Planning Department have moved forward rapidly with sweeping zoning changes that will forever change the small town feel of Durham. More important is the fact that these changes have opened the door to unfettered building and development all throughout the central business zone and adjacent to several of the downtown residential neighborhoods. The increases in allowable building heights and building density on lots have been pushed through despite the outcries of many residents. We are told that Durham needs the revenue and that the developers find it too hard to do business in Durham without these changes. What we are not seeing is any cohesive vision or plans for what the downtown and the main core area will look like with these changes. What do the developers want to build that cannot be contained within our current codes, and how will these structures service the community? We have not yet seen how these changes will support residents being able to better utilize the downtown area to safely congregate, shop, walk, eat, park, exercise, and any other activities that might draw residents into a downtown core. What concerns me most is the disenfranchisement of many of the residents of our town. For months now, several very hardworking members of the community have tried to engage with town planning and House Task Force members to try to create a unified vision that doesn't just meet the needs of the developers, but also enhances the downtown core and draws residents back into town. Late last year, residents were led to believe that a compromise had been reached at the town council and planning levels to limit central business district building heights to 42 feet and 4 stories and to require suitable setbacks. Then they find out that the board and task force members are continuing to push through a higher limit of 50 feet and possibly allowing 5 stories. This is not the way the process is supposed to work. You should not be just ignoring the input from hundreds of community members. The task force has even garnered the support of small portions of the community by leading them to believe that this development will lower their taxes. If only it were that simple. To be clear, the town of Durham definitely needs a refresh, one that increases the usability of the town core for its residents and includes businesses that service a broad range of consumers and maintains the small town charm that led many of us to move here in the first place. The new proposal does not meet the needs of the residents of Durham. And I just want to echo this woman's comments. I don't envy you guys at all. This is a very difficult situation. I just hope that you'll listen to everybody and not just listen to the developers. Thank you very much.
Do we have any hands in Zoom?
We do not.
Anyone else in the room?
Beth Olshansky, Packers Falls Road. I wanted to address this first public hearing, and I have comments, different comments for the next one.
Okay.
So first of all, I appreciate the fact that Michael sent out, I believe to you this afternoon, the Durham Architectural Design Standards. One of the things that I appreciate about the work the town council did with Doug and Michael was that it really was trying to address some of those standards, which, as Michael pointed out today, shall be followed during your site plan review process. So I agree that the town council proposal needed a lot of work, as the planning board has already decided. Some of the things I liked about it was that it really did consider the standards and how to mitigate height while still increasing that height to the 4 stories, which the community, most of the community seems to be okay with. One of the other things I liked about that proposal was that it was context sensitive, and I've looked at the Dover zoning, and they have a real thrust toward the context sensitive. That means when you create new buildings on a streetscape, how are they going to fit in with the existing streetscape and the adjacent buildings? And that is part of what is in our design standards as well. The 42 feet proposed at the town council, I think we learned from subsequent testimony from Nick Isaac and from David Choate, was really too short. So I'm here to advocate for 45 feet, which I know Nick has sent in a couple documents, one earlier and one more recently, but, you know, showing that 45 feet can work with today's current standards. I think the zoning, if you want to call it ordinance or recommendations the town council sent you, were messy. And I understand why you probably don't want to deal with it. But I think some of the concepts are worth saving. And Michael had explained to me that tonight's public hearing was really to listen to the public, get feedback, and that it doesn't have to be, do you like A or do you like B? But perhaps we're able to meld some of the good parts of both those into something that would suit broader range of goals. And we all want our downtown to be revitalized, for sure. I do have a quick question. I have a PowerPoint I want to show later on the second public hearing. Are we set up for that? I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with this thing, but the wire will work. I'll turn that, we turn that other box off. If it comes on again, we just turn the other box off and you'll be a brief interruption.
Okay, great.
Do you want me to unplug that other box?
I would just unplug it.
For now, we'll plug it back in later when we need it.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, you can double-click the blue button on the box to turn it off.
Oh, double click, try that.
Just don't worry.
Yeah, just unplug it.
William Hall, Durham. I was watching some of this tonight, and I felt I had to get my oar in the water. Mrs. Tobias, I think you went to Portsmouth and found out that the business people in Portsmouth are not all that impressed with Durham. Is that correct? Okay.
No, I did not go to Portsmouth and find
You
that out.
didn't go to
No.
the planner and the
We've been
development
to all
lady?
kinds of towns and they.
Yeah, the development lady.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to have to solve a problem before you can even think of improving downtown. No other town has a reputation like Durham has. I worked and 50 years ago, downtown was busy till 1 o'clock at night. It was busy starting with breakfast at Young's. It was Libby's, Down Under, were all going every single night. They're closed now. This week, they're closed. Back then, they were open every night and plenty of business. I come through town at 10, 11 o'clock at night frequently, and I've found times in a single car parked downtown. Not a single car between Pettybrook and Madbury Road. About 30 years ago, a business located in Somersworth, a fellow lived in Durham, had lived here for many years, and had gone to Dover for 3,000 square feet, and then moved to the industrial park in Somersworth to get 6,000 square feet. And he said the perfect place to be in was where the police station is now. He could have bought it then. And I said, well, how come you didn't do it? He said, only a fool would locate a business in Durham. And there are many aspects of that. But when you have that type of impression going on about Durham outside, it's going to make things awful hard for you. I know that in dealing with Tom Johnson, I had one friend who had a professional electrician, master electrician, and Tom Johnson would not give them a sticker to get electricity, period, and wouldn't tell them why. Well, this guy's father-in-law is an electrician. He goes to the supply houses. We hear about these things. You can't have people doing things like that. I made a call to the PUC, and the next thing I knew, it had a sticker on it. But I went into Johnson's office with Todd Selleck, and I couldn't find out why this person, what he had to do to get electricity. Now, these are just a couple small examples. You've just had a road developed, Madbury Road, by complete fools. You've got curbing on it. The curbing is not accommodating, the radius is not accommodating the school buses. I saw a school bus turn right onto Woodman Road, and the back end went up about this high because the rear wheels of the school bus went over that brand new curb. Because the guy didn't take enough of a swing to do it because the radius isn't adequate. The other day, because the curb's up on Madbury Road, there's a DF Richard truck in the middle of the travel lane delivering oil because there's no shoulder now. Another time I went up Madbury Road and there was a senior citizen on the right side of the road, and the car's having to crowd him. He's over at the curb as far as he go, and still go over the yellow line.
Bill, can we stick to?
Yeah, I'm sticking to it. As long as this sort of thing goes on in Durham, you are going to have a tough time developing Durham. And believe me, I got a list as long as your arm. Do you know that right now we're paying the university $386,000 a year for water that, and Todd won't tell me how that's computed, what we're paying for. It's just an item in the water budget, and that's almost half our water budget. Oh, after we get done paying for our well, then we pay for their well, on top of the 386. And then when the tank got overhauled, we paid our $300,000, and then we paid the university's $500,000. When you have stories like that going around about town, you're going to have a tough time developing this town.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Williams. I live at 51 6th Street in Dover, New Hampshire.
My name is Eric Lever. I live at 42 Main Street in Dover, New Hampshire.
I'm here tonight representing Strongtown Seacoast, a local all-volunteer group advocating for safe and productive streets and resilient municipal finances in the Seacoast region. I'm here to speak in support of the Planning Board's proposed amendment to relax the height restrictions and allow the Central Business 1 District to include 4-story developments up to 50 feet. The primary goal of a town or a city is to endure. Durham has endured for nearly 300 years. To continue that success, Durham needs to ensure that it has the finances to maintain itself, its infrastructure, its amenities, and the services it provides to its residents. This means that the amount of private investment being made into the town needs to well exceed the amount of public investment. In other words, the town must have a tax base that covers the cost of its maintenance. However, the question of how to handle demand to live in Durham and any growth is present. High demand and limited supply are a recipe for high prices, and because of that, Durham needs to consider how to respond to this demand. Strongtown Seacoast believes that the most viable approach for cities and towns is to allow developments in areas that already have supporting infrastructure. Downtown Durham is a reasonable place to do this, as it keeps the town's needs for additional infrastructure to a minimum and allows new residents to move in without undue burden on the town's financial resources. Relaxing the height restrictions, as well as other restrictive zoning ordinances, will allow and attract further private investment in the downtown. Such an increase in investment will translate to an increase in the tax base with minimal increase to the cost to the town. This helps Durham become a stronger town that is more equipped to endure in the coming generations. We support the relaxing of height restrictions to allow Central Business 1 district to include 4 stories and up to 50 feet. Thank you.
Hello, I'm James Tobias. I live on 107 Madbury Road, and I'm in for the 50-foot rule. We really need to give developers room to develop if we really want to make Durham a place where more people can live.
Hi, my name is Brandon Walsh. I'm the pastor of Great Bay Anglican Church at 42A Main Street. I'm a newcomer to Main Street. We moved in there about 8 months ago. We're right next to Roger Hayden. And I just wanted to, our tagline as a church is to be a gospel presence in the heart of Durham and to be for Durham. Not just Durham proper, but truly to be a life-giving source, a part of the community right on Main Street. We're a congregation of people in their young 30s with kids, some of the people that we've talked about trying to attract to Durham. And I just want to say I heartily endorse a 50-foot, 4-story change, because business in Durham is not our enemy. People being able to put millions of dollars into real estate on Main Street, investing in properties that can turn a profit, is people trying to bring their resources to bear in our town. And those resources are things that are going to create jobs and opportunities for people in my congregation and for people to stay in Durham rather than simply come to Durham and leave forever. I'm also a business owner. I own Shoreline Counseling Group, which has offices in Dover and in Portsmouth. And I can tell you that being a for-profit business does not mitigate the good that you can do for your community. In fact, it's the backbone of what investing in community over a long term, creating jobs and opportunity is about. There's this wonderful book that I picked up, and it has a century of photographs in Durham. And if you look at the history of Main Street, it did not always look like it does right now. In fact, I bet that there were people who were bent out of shape when we started building 2-story buildings on Main Street. The reality is that development and growth requires change. And that requires all of us to have a stomach to see the future and not just the past. As somebody who is hoping to build a life and to build a whole community right in downtown for the next 30, 40 years plus, I want to see developers have the resources and the ability to invest millions of dollars to better our community, to not get in their way, but to attract them. And so I wanted to simply come and say that I'm for doing whatever we need to do to help people invest in our town and in our future. Because just because things change doesn't mean they're changing for the worse. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Singer, 5 Woodridge Road. I'll be really brief. I totally agree with Dennis Meadows. And for those of you who see the 50-foot building height as a panacea to solve all the problems, the high taxes or the stagnant downtown, we all know there are multiple reasons why the downtown is failing. And I've got to say, the one thing I'm very concerned about is the scale of buildings and what that will have as an aesthetic impact on the downtown. You know, you have to realize that the buildings in the downtown have to be to scale. They have to be, I'm going to use the term, beautiful. And a lot of the buildings I'm seeing just are square boxes. And I just think you have to take into consideration a larger plan, a more comprehensive plan. And, you know, from what I've seen, the 45 height limit with pitch roofs and dormers, that's a really reasonable compromise. So, again, please consider having a more comprehensive study to deal with these problems, because 50 feet heights aren't going to cut it. Thank you.
Heather, I have a question for our council representative. So, Judith, you'll be next, but Heather, you know, we've had 3 people talk about, you know, funding a comprehensive review and solution from third-party experts. What's the likelihood of that getting funded by the town council?
It's not going to be funded this
How many?
year. Maybe even next year.
So you
Maybe even the year after that.
So you're looking at 3 to 5 years before something like that could happen. So
Yeah, and I think that if you think about what we've done in the last 10 years, actually more than 10 years, was tweak things to hold things back, and we are behind. So do we pause for another year, 2 years, 3 years? And I think that's a problem.
Thank you. Judith?
This is beginning to feel like Groundhog Day. Yeah, there have been so many good ideas put forward. I guess I am Judith Spang, 55 Wiswell Road. I've been on the planning board in the past, and I am a recent graduate of the Housing Task Force. I think what I would like to emphasize is the fact that we're trying to handle too many very different problems with one solution. And as Dennis mentioned, I think that we're not accomplishing any of them the way we would like to. In my mind, I've been a professional planner, and in my mind, planning is always a matter of weighing costs versus benefits. So what we're talking about here is what we are going to be giving up in order to either keep or not keep the small town character of Durham. Now, I would not be someone who would take the charge in arguing that the town of Durham is a thing of beauty. It could do maybe some things in terms of existing buildings to make them more attractive. We could also, and I feel that it's unfair for the current administration or for our current infrastructure or our buildings to blame what the town of Durham looks like now for its demise. There are a lot of things that business people can do to bring vitality to this town that does not require our change of our zoning. So I think we need a little more imagination and more investment on the part of our business owners to bring that vitality into our town. I think we're trying to use this to bring in more taxes. I don't think we can necessarily count on having more activity coming out of this change. I would like to know that we're not going to just be building more student housing. I don't think it's a matter of changing the height of a room from 8 feet to 10 feet to bring in people who are going to bring in more vitality to the town. I think we're going to get more students. I have never had the opportunity to live in a place where the buildings, the rooms were 10 feet high in their ceilings. And I don't know if that would make a big difference to me in terms of the amount of money I was going to pay for a unit. So I don't think it's really going to increase our taxes. And I think that I have great respect for the people who I've been dealing with in the housing partnership and their desire to not let town zoning be a block, an obstacle to developing more badly needed housing. I don't think that this is going to provide enough housing to make it worth sacrificing our small town beauty. If it just fills up with students, what have we really gained in terms of addressing our housing needs? I know that there are developers and property owners who would really like to see an increase in the amount of floor area. I think that Rob Sullivan has come up with a perfect solution that will optimize many of the things that we would like to see. It's going to give us the floor area that we need to attract developers, while at the same time not sacrificing the aesthetics. So I think that we're not getting much in exchange for the sacrifices that we're making, that 360 people signed petitions to maintain the current small town beauty of Durham. What are we sacrificing that for? I have to say that I'm very disappointed in this process. The Housing Task Force did not say they wanted 50-foot heights. They said that we need to encourage more development downtown, which is a very reasonable thing for a planner to say. It makes a lot of sense to bring our development downtown, but we were not recommending that we have 50-foot building heights as a way of accomplishing that. I don't know how, as somebody just mentioned, when this left the town council, there have been hearings, there have been a lot of talk about what the pros and cons in doing things, and the planning board was given something that was pretty popular with the people who had come to testify on both the development and the town resident side. And then somehow we went from a 3-story, 35, 40-foot building to a 50-foot building. And I don't see how that happened. Who is the town? You certainly weren't listening to the residents. So how did it happen that all of a sudden we've got to 50 feet without any particular community support? I certainly hope that Rob has done a wonderful job of taking all of these different heights and configurations and things like that into something that I think that probably everybody could live with. So I would recommend that if we're going to continue to fool around with zoning and building heights as what we think is going to be our solution to our problem, rather than getting some professionals to come in and give us some good, solid advice on coming out of an analysis of what's going on here, rather than just grabbing. There's no reason we have to be doing this zoning right now, as far as I know. Why can't we wait until we can do this properly instead of grabbing at straws? So I guess I'm picking up on what a number of people are saying here, but I certainly would not feel comfortable with going for something as extreme as 50 feet without some good, solid reason for doing so. Thank you.
It's confusing.
Good evening. I'm Ben Bulkley. Nancy and I live at 569 Bay Road. Seems to me the point of relaxing the height limits is to send a message. To send a message that we're open for business. We want the conversations about what we can do with this precious resource of downtown. Because until now, it seems to me, and in our own personal experience, we're closed for business. It's stagnated. And we've got an economic imperative right now that affects everybody, that we had better get the engine going, or it's going to displace and dislocate a lot of people that do not want to leave town. And so to me, this is a message about we're open for business. It's a start. It's not a solution. It's a start. It's a start of a conversation. We need to get the people to the table first and then explore what is possible. And until you say you're open for business, they're going to stay where they've been. Not here. Not exploring the options to create something new and vibrant and add to the community. Thank you.
Joshua Meyer with 7 Chesley Drive. So I'd just like to say the discussion seems to be that maybe these changes will improve, or maybe we'll just leave it the same. I think actually the potential, especially if we go to the 50 feet, is to have the reverse impact. When I was chair of the Department of Communication at UNH, I asked a lot of the parents, prospective parents and students about what attracted them to UNH. I mean, it's relatively high tuition and other issues, and they repeatedly mentioned this combination of a pretty good-sized university matched with something that felt like a safe, small town, and the comfort there. Now, again, I would like to see a more vibrant town. I wouldn't mind taller than the 1 story and 2 stories that we have, but we've had lots of testimony and comparisons to other towns, and to have by Beth Olshansky with a lot of clear visual examples and data, and I think to create to undo what still feels like a small town feel and also matches master plan goals and architectural standards and so forth, is likely to have a reverse impact and bring fewer people to Durham, keep fewer people in Durham, keep fewer people wanting to go downtown, and not being able to distinguish between the scale of a university and the scale of a community. So I'd just like to, that's my take from my personal experience. I'd also like to echo the concerns about many of us, after months of hearings and communications, exchanges, and 252 people signing and more, so many speaking, that the November 3rd council vote, which we thought was kind of okay, a compromise, but at least it recognized the democratic process, is somehow just, well, we don't really like that result, let's try and undo that. That's a great concern to me. And also in terms of what I was saying of a more systemic approach, I heartily endorse Dennis Meadows' view. By the way, one of the world's, Google him if you don't know Dennis Meadows and his reputation as one of the world's leading planners and futurists, that just simply adding height to buildings and maybe slightly increasing the tax base is not going to, and maybe having a reverse impact, as I think is quite possible, is not going to solve our problems. This is a much larger systemic issue, and changes and the loss of many of those features that drew people to town. So I think that we risk cutting off our noses, in a sense, to spite our faces in the downtown feel by just allowing, lifting all the heights and saying somehow this is progress. There were many progress movements and things built that we're now seeing are unwise and tearing them down, and we have to be careful about what we add and do it with wisdom. So I would leave you with those thoughts. Also, I agree also that we're not going to bring non-students to downtown without parking, and maybe that's still a possibility. And also, I would say Roger Hayden initial comment on all this said that you could build 15 stories and not have non-students unless you have parking. So parking is essential if we want non-student tenants in town. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tolu Afalayan, 9 Willie Road, Durham, New Hampshire. I'm here today as a resident, a business owner, member of the Durham Business Association, and a member of the Durham Rotary Club. So I see a lot of different sides of Durham, and I'm here today to voice my support for the town's business community. I believe to have a strong, resilient, and sustainable community, balance is necessary. While I appreciate and enjoy the visual character and rich history of Durham, I also continue to see how businesses continue to struggle with community engagement, consistent business during the summer, parking, and working with town hall to make things happen. I do think it is vital to hear, listen to, and act upon the concerns of the residents of Durham, but at the same time, I think it is also necessary to seriously take the concerns of local business owners into consideration, because they serve an extremely important role that benefits the people of our community. I strongly believe that having a healthy and thriving business base in Durham is a necessity for a healthy and thriving community in Durham as well. Along with community organizers and public employees, they do a lot to add to the character of the town in a way that should not be understated. This is why we want to voice our support for the proposal zoning board amendment to change the height limit in CB1. Based on previous discussion, I believe that 4 stories and 50-foot height, along with a 5 stories conditional, right, is the right choice. Understanding the desired intentions and spirit of the ordinance amendment and the economics of real estate development, as I understand it, we believe that this will be a decision that will be an important step on the pathway towards revitalizing downtown. We shouldn't forget that we also have a university here in town, of course, that has its own plans and agenda and does plan into the future in an impactful way. And I hope we can find a way to chart a path forward together before inaction or indecision allows others to chart a path for us. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
So, I'm just wondering at what point we want to shift to the second public hearing. So if we're getting close to that point where I think that might be, is there anyone who wants to still specifically speak on the first issue? Doug?
Doug Banks, 7 York Drive. I'm not sure if I'm speaking to one or both. I think it's really both. I'm in the melding category here. But I want to just give you a little bit of background. As I watched your session December 10th to just make sure that there was a little bit of understanding about the work that Michael and I did in terms of what we brought forward. Because, and just for everybody's perspective, after I shared some of my perspective at earlier council meetings, I was invited by the council to work together with Michael Barrett to prepare what ended up being sent to the planning board as a compromise between an original proposal for a full 4 floors and a desire by many to keep a 3-story limit on the eastern end of the CB1 district. The proposal that the council approved for your consideration was informed by a variety of issues and considerations. And as I say, as I watched the planning board meeting, I just wanted to be sure that a couple of these ideas were clear. The idea was to allow for a 4th floor, but whose visual impact would be mitigated by being under a sloped roof or with a 10-foot setback. And so to me, this is an important detail of this, that the idea is on the street, you're reading it as 3 stories. And then there's a pitched roof with 4 floor space under it, or there's a setback. So it recedes. It has less of an impact, and it helps to mitigate that feeling of rather than just having one straight, wall that goes up on the street. And so as we talk about needing something more than 42 feet, and I acknowledge that, there has been more informed information, although What I heard at your meeting was 45 to 50. I believe Nick Isaac said that that was a range that was doable. So you immediately went to 50 and then concluded that we didn't need to do any setback or any kind of pitched roof, put it all on the street, it's not a concern. And I think we've heard that for some people that is a concern. And so for me, it's a reasonable compromise to be looking at a way to be able to do a sloped fourth floor or a setback fourth floor to be able to help mitigate that. And to consider maybe 50 feet is too much. Is there something a little bit less that, again, can still make it be viable, make great buildings that people want to be in? There's nothing magic about 50 feet. David Choate said, you know, everybody's doing 50 feet, they're even doing more. Well, I'm not sure that that's true. I mean, I did take a look at the buildings that were built between 2010 and 2015 in Durham, and generally the height of that third floor eave, the top, that edge of the roof at the third floor, which is the primary condition in all those buildings, is closer to being around 32 to 35 feet, which then would suggest more like 45 feet to the floor. Thank you.
Doug, one question. Can you speak to the beauty factor of a building and where mechanicals and some of that stuff might best be located to make sure the building looks attractive?
I think the way that design teams deal with mechanicals is in a variety of ways. I mean, it can be behind a screen, it can be inset inside of a pitched roof, it can be inside the building. We've certainly seen other recent constructions where you'll notice all of these air conditioning units, these heating
condensers and stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Up, sort of scattered all over the roof. That isn't a great thing to be able to see. So, I mean, that's a detail in all of this that needs attention. But I don't know that there's a particular solution to that.
And one other question is, how does like a pitched roof read differently if it's 45 or 48? Like we're kind of wrestling with this gap between 45 and 50.
Yeah.
Where's the sweet spot, or does it read the same?
Where that third floor, where that pitch starts, where the top of the third floor is. That's what's really helping in terms of the street. In terms of if that pitched roof goes up to 45 or goes up to 50 feet, it's receding away from you. So to me, it's less of an issue. But when you're talking about walls that are just going straight up, that's has more implication.
And so the setback is critical to prevent the canyon effect.
It just helps in terms of that feeling that you've just got that straight wall, that tall straight wall. And does everybody pay attention to this? No. Not everybody pays attention, but we are all impacted by our environment. We all have a feeling about where we are, and it does things to us whether we're consciously thinking about, oh, gee, is that 50 feet high?
Thank you.
Okay.
Deborah Hirsch. Hold on a second. Can't do this. I'm sorry. Okay. I had to attend the meeting. I've been outside the whole day, and I've been watching and listening on Zoom because when I sit here, I can't hear anything people are saying. I especially can't hear the speakers who have my back to me. That's a whole other issue, but I'm very upset about and I tried using that assisted thing. I've tried it 3 times, it doesn't work. So what I was just doing was turning off the Zoom meeting so it wasn't playing in my, okay. Different problem. I don't want to take a lot of your time. I agree with Dennis Meadows, Gail Kelly, Mary Alice and Gwen Howard, Carolyn Singer, Judith Spang, Beth Olshansky, Josh Meyerowitz, and I especially want to thank Doug. There are a lot of issues on the table, and a lot of problems we're trying to address, and I agree with the people who have said just saying we'll have 50 feet building height is not going to solve the problems. I agree with Dennis, we really should be and need to be taking a much more comprehensive look at about all the issues that feed into what we want, an attractive, vibrant town that's appealing to residents, that draws more people, and that's appealing to developers. We've heard from one person who says the council won't approve that for 3 years. I don't know if we believe that or not, but it can't be done tonight. So I just want to, I wanted to get up here to state that I agree with those particular speakers, and also to say, because of the issues in front of you now and you want to do something, please listen to Doug and think about compromises that may be the best thing we can do now. And then beyond that, think about how, be creative, how we might be able to address the issue in a more comprehensive way. I think that I understand, I've heard over and over how we're not friendly to developers, and that's a concern. I've heard over and over about affordable housing. I care about that. But I also think simply raising building heights to 50 feet is not going to solve that problem. Thank you.
Okay, I think this might be a good time to break to the second public hearing. What do people think?
Sure.
Yeah, all right. I'll move that we close the first public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, somebody adjusted their mics. All right, so hold on, no, I'm having a technical, there we go. So we're moving on to item 9. So the planning board has agreed to listen to both public hearings before we make decisions on either of the items. So we're now going to move on to item 9. Proposed zoning amendment to change height limit in CB1, an amendment proposed by the planning board to establish a new height limit for all the Central Business 1 district. 4 stories and a 50-foot height would be permitted by right through all of CB1. Presently, the limit in the westerly section of CB1 is 4 stories by right, 5 stories by conditional use. The limit in the easterly section of CB1 is 3 stories by right. All right. Move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Second by Peyton. All in favor? Aye. Right.
Is that all I need to do?
Should be.
Just give it a moment. There it is.
What's that underneath? Oh, that's my mail. Sorry. I'm not sure how to create.
You just click onto your PowerPoint presentation.
Well, this is my PowerPoint.
She seems to be.
You've got other boxes open, I think.
I'm in PowerPoint all day, every day.
Oh,
so.
thank you.
Oh, we
just
got,
want to go into
got some
down here.
technical.
This is presentation mode.
Yeah.
It should.
It looks like she's straddling 2 windows.
Oh.
Yeah, it does.
Well, this is my email that I wanted to get on.
This is your presentation mode off your screen. I don't understand. It's like you've got 2. It's like
She's
the
got 2
computer thinks
desktops
you're-
up and they're overlapping is what she has.
I don't know. Hang on.
Make that one.
Yeah, this is what it said.
Can you drag?
Well, this could be bigger.
Yes, it could, but if you're gonna do
Yeah.
that here. I need full screen.
Make that one bigger.
Yeah, can you do that?
Now we're on the presentation.
I think we're gonna have the same issue. Yeah.
Can you drag the presentation across into this screen?
You can't. It won't drag.
It won't drag? All right.
How do we?
Didn't you go back to your PowerPoint and just go into presentation mode?
That's what I'm trying to do. If presentation mode is open, it's off screen, like her computer thinks she's got 2 monitors.
Yeah, that's okay.
exactly what's going
Yeah.
on. It's
Yeah,
a display
Wasn't this good
detection
enough?
issue.
This is probably
So
fine.
this is the best we're gonna get.
Yeah, all right, thank
It's
you.
okay.
Great new asset to our planning
Yeah, I
board.
think so.
Okay, Bethel Shansky, Packers Falls Road. Okay, the planning board's decision to propose 50 feet height limit last time was based on what I believe was incomplete information about local height limits, and I sent you that information via an email, and also was not considered where the Durham architectural design standards. Appreciated Michael sending those out today. Want to focus on particular ones. The one in particular about human scale architecture, which Doug was addressing in his 30-foot eave line, and also sensitivity to the neighboring buildings and the streetscape. Notice there are others that play in, including small town character important to Durham residents. Those concepts, small town, human scale, compatibility with architectural heritage, sensitivity to adjacent buildings, the streetscape appear with, throughout all of our planning documents. Here's some examples of inappropriate scale, and you can see what it did to that lovely Victorian. And you know, this is exactly why our design standards address sensitivity to the streetscape and adjacent buildings. So from our design standards, which our planner today reminded the board were a mandatory part of the site plan review, talks about buildings shall, above all, possess human scale, which Doug was addressing again by some of those mitigating factors. And according to the height, buildings shall not be as tall as to create a canyon effect and be out of scale with human form and surrounding buildings. And I'll note, with the tallest buildings, it is maybe desirable to employ techniques to reduce that sense of height. And there's where you get into like the pitch roof and all that. So our amendments, all of our amendments to our zoning should align with existing planning documents. So why all the fuss about Main Street? It is the face of our community. What will 50-foot tall buildings look like along Main Street? So here we have a 50-foot tall building that exists in Durham today, but I've put it next to the juicery so you can see, you know, the height differences and how out of scale it would be, and contrary to our design standards. Here you can look at it without the text just to see that huge difference in scale. Here's what it would look like next to the campus convenience, and here next to the Durham House of Pizza. You know, you have to wonder if this is going to meet those shalls in our design standards. Here I've put it over between, sandwiched on the sides of Clark. Again, you know, is this what we consider sensitive to adjacent buildings and the streetscape? And here it is on Jenkins, the corner of Jenkins and Main, where our standards remind us buildings shall not be so tall as to create a canyon effect. The letter signed by 250 residents called for 3.5-story buildings. What that really meant was 4 stories with a pitch roof and dormers to better align with our architectural standards that call for traditional New England vernacular, human scale buildings, sensitivity to adjacent buildings and the streetscape. This 45-foot building with a pitched roof and dormers fits better in with our Durham streetscape and architectural standards. It's still bigger, plenty enough bigger for that extra story and more housing, but it's not as out of scale. Contrary to popular beliefs, a pitched roof with dormers does not have to significantly reduce usable area of the top floor, as evidenced by this clever and attractive design by Nick Isaac. There is a building that has been approved in Dover at the Harvey Bakery site where they're adding a 4th floor, pitched roof and dormers. And it's 45 feet. I've been talking with their planning office, so they managed to figure out how to add that 4th floor in an attractive, modest way that fits in with their streetscape, and their HVAC is going on the roof, but behind where it won't be seen from the public way. So that's something we might want to consider in terms of architectural details. Here it is superimposed on Main Street. You can see it's much more keeping in the character and scale of the juicery, which is going to stay there because it's newly redeveloped, as opposed to the 50-foot. Here is the bakery building next to Campus Convenience. Whoops, excuse me. Here it is next to Clark's. It's still a jump, but you know, it works better. It's not as imposing and overwhelming as this would be. So what does 45 feet get us? It will jumpstart redevelopment, increase the tax revenue, add an additional story of usable area, could create a same amount of housing as a 50-foot building. It's better aligned with our design standards, not as out of scale or insensitive to adjacent buildings or the streetscape. That's important because you have to meet the design standards when you hear shall. And it will expedite approval process at the town council by minimizing citizen pushback. I just wanted to give a shout out to Rob Sullivan's drawings that try to incorporate key recommendations from multiple sources. So what this model does is it respects the construction recommendations by Nick Isaac and David Choate. It incorporates the pitch roof recommended by David Choate and aligns with Durham's design standards as a tool to mitigate height and mass. It includes the 35-foot eave line, incorporating Doug Banks' effort to create more human-scale buildings. And it's responsive to the requests of 250 residents asking for pitched roof and dormers and more human-scale buildings that better align with our design standards. If Dover can figure out how to make a more modest 45-foot mixed-use building work, why can't we?
You want an answer to that?
Yeah.
Okay, they're working with an existing building that, if it was built new, wouldn't be able to be as high as it is.
Okay, but Nick did say that 45 feet could work.
In a perfect lot. I'll let it. I'll leave the rest of that for the deliberations later. But you can take individual instances and they'll work in individual places. Doesn't mean that you can say that you can make them work everywhere throughout a zone.
Okay, my understanding is like the one-story buildings that we have in Durham that we desperately want to redevelop, probably be torn down and start from scratch. And then I think, it's fair to look at Nick's measurements as being, totally appropriate and adequate for a 45-foot building. And also, I just want to point out that this model is responsive to the many voices of citizens that have been asking for the mitigation with the pitched roof and the dormers and more human scale buildings that do meet our design standards. Okay, I'm here again. Yes, I just believe a model such as this better addresses our existing zoning and architectural standards, and let's make the Main Street context sensitive, as Dover is doing, making it a special place where Durham residents will want to gather. And that, I think a lot of it is about scale. We can get a lot of bang for our buck in terms of more housing, more assessed value, an attractive building if we just don't overdo it. We're entering uncharted territory with the no conditional use. So let's not disregard our standards and overreach and later regret it. Thank you.
Can I just ask a few questions?
Yeah.
So in the language, I read a lot and I hear a lot about a canyon effect. Mm-hmm. And I was researching that a little bit. Can you just give us your definition of a canyon effect?
Okay, I can show it.
Because there could be some where it has to do with, well, I'll let you go.
Okay, right there. That's a canyon effect. Most of Main Street doesn't have that problem because you have Mill Road coming in like that and, wide open. But the parts where you this is a particularly good example of where you have to be concerned about a canyon effect because the road's very narrow and the buildings are very tall. And in this case, without the pitch going back, at that 35 feet level, 35 to 45, you're going to feel very closed in, like you're in a canyon. The other place where it plays in is along Main Street, like starting with Polly's and down to Scorpio's, like across the street from Pizza and Juicery, et cetera, where the road narrows and you don't have that open-ended. So that's my concept of what a canyon effect means. Did you?
So it doesn't have to do with energy retention and heat buildup and other things that would sometimes be mentioned as canyon effect.
Well,
this is more an aesthetic judgment.
Well, it's not just aesthetics because it has to do with how much sunlight gets down there. So that also impacts pedestrians in the winter, icy roads and that kind of thing. But it's an aesthetic in terms of light.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then just two other comments. There was, I think, one picture, and I actually took almost the identical picture, and I think it was near the bridge going to Kittery in Portsmouth. I think that was a picture of Portsmouth, one of those 4-story buildings you had. And then right next to it, there are 5-story buildings. So there's a picture in your deck, and there's a picture of 4-story buildings, and if you were just to pivot to the right, there are 5-story buildings there. So,
you might be thinking of an old slideshow I did. I don't have that on this particular deck.
and then my last comment, and I'll leave the rest for for our deliberation, is on Dover. There's a picture you have of a 4-story building.
Yeah.
Right around the corner is a 5-story building from that.
Yeah.
Right. So there's mix there, and would you consider those like human scale?
No. Okay, human scale, Doug Banks would be better to answer this, but I've learned from him. Human scale is a precise calculation determined by the width of the road, the width of the sidewalks, and that determines how high the building could be, before it feels out of overwhelming to the human form. And according to Doug, for Durham Main Street, human scale, the figure is 30 feet, 30, maybe 32 feet to the eave line. And so that was the basis of the 42 feet that Doug had originally come up with. That's human scale. And the way to mitigate these 4th floors, which I think everyone pretty much, not everyone, many people agree that, we need to stimulate redevelopment downtown, and we know from the banks that the banks require 3 floors of residential in order to bankroll these projects, et cetera. I mean, I think we understand that and agree, but that 4th floor, it would make a huge difference. You go up 3 floors, and then at that 35-foot eave line, take a curve in, just as Rob had drawn into his design. That creates more of a human scale feeling. So if you were on Jenkins Court, will you see where the eave line is at the top of the 3rd story there? If those buildings went in like that, it would feel way less overwhelming, and it would be more to human scale.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. Anyone else?
So could you leave that too late?
No. It's not too late. It'll come
So
on.
Jenkins Court runs perpendicular to Main Street. Are you talking about it being imposing on Main Street, or you getting the canyon effect on Main Street, or the canyon effect on Jenkins?
On Jenkins.
So the only way to alleviate that on Jenkins would be to have, I don't know what the roof design, there's a name for it, when all 4 faces of the roof are pitched.
Oh, you're
So
thinking on the
would-
corner of Main and Jenkins, you mean?
Well, to eliminate that if you just had a traditional roof, a
Yeah.
peaked roof,
Yeah.
you would still have that 4-story exposure on Jenkins if you had it pitched on
Yeah,
Main.
on the front, right. So you would have 2 pitches possibly on
Yeah, which I think
Jenkins.
we'd have to get into the design standards in the town and whether that's even allowed.
Michael could talk to that probably.
So I think, simply saying that we have canyon effects to worry about, it's really going to depend building to building, is what you're saying, that there will have to do spot zoning or spot design work to deal with this.
I think you come up with a reasonable zoning. I'm advocating for something that's modest, but very workable, financially viable, etc. And then you have a set of design standards that addresses some of the individual circumstances. Michael, do you want to agree with that?
I mean, the architecture regulations give a lot of guidance and control.
Yeah.
I would say for people in the public that are following this, there is additional language, I'm not going to say lurking, but I will say present and available, that would create additional constraints even with this addition, or with this change. Now, how we define a canyon effect, I think, is probably up for a little bit of discussion, because I think they're radically different, views of that, and whether, but I will save that for our internal discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
Diane McCann, 27 Oyster River Road. I did want to mention that you already have done a great job in your planning, because we have 4 houses in the faculty neighborhood now that are full of students, owned by one owner. So I don't know what the point of that change was that we have to deal with now, but it certainly made a difference in our neighborhood. I think you can think about what that means. I certainly agree with what Beth has.
Just one correction, Diane. That's required by state law. That wasn't driven by us.
I know, but you didn't have to enact it.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Yes,
Well,
we did.
All right, then I hope that you'll be able to tax that family, that entity, as a business then, because the rest of us are going to be suffering with that change. Thank you. One of the things that I understand about the state law, one of the things that I want to talk about with Beth, regarding Beth's comments, is that I think we need to try this compromise, because we're at the point where now we're just making everyone miserable. And I think the compromise is worth trying. You can amend the compromise, but her message is clear. We have had 200 some people who have no voice other than our petition. We haven't had 200 people coming to speak because they were so mad. And I think we need to work with the sentiment of the town at this point. You all know what happened on Monday. People were mad. So let's try to appease some of our needs, besides the developers. One of the things I did want to mention, and I don't know if I can get it right now on my phone, but someone was talking about lots of people have talked about having assistance with an effort to include a study or forum or something. And I don't know if you all are aware of the Carsey School. The mission is to make positive societal changes using research and education to inform effective policies and equip current and future leaders with the skills needed for public service and problem solving. We have resources like that. I wish you would check with them and see if they could be of assistance. The Carsey School. Thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maeve Nolan. I am not a Durham resident. I live in Hampton Falls, but tonight I am representing the Workforce Housing Coalition of the Greater Seacoast. I am the Communications and Engagement Coordinator there. If you're not familiar, we work in communities across the region, the Greater Seacoast region, to advance housing opportunities for our workforce and their families. Until its sunsetting last fall, I also served as an advisory member of Durham's Housing Task Force. I'm here this evening to express support for this proposal drafted by the Planning Board to change the building height maximums in the entire Central Business 1 district to 4 stories and 50 feet. I know there has been concern, definitely expressed tonight, that this change could increase student pressures, alter the character of downtown Durham, or lead to buildings that feel out of scale. I want to speak to these concerns directly. First, regarding student pressures. Students already live in Durham, and they have longer than any of us in this room have been alive. Limiting housing supply downtown does not reduce student demand. It simply displaces it into single-family neighborhoods or older housing stock. Allowing additional housing in appropriate downtown locations can help relieve pressure elsewhere, while also creating opportunities for recent graduates and local workers to remain in town, a trajectory that is nearly impossible for these groups today. Second, with respect to character, this proposal is targeted and measured. It applies only to the Central Business 1 district, an area that is already defined by mixed-use development and existing infrastructure. Thoughtful vertical development allows growth to happen where it belongs, downtown.
Could you make sure the mic's pointed at you? Thank you.
Thoughtful vertical development allows growth to happen downtown where it belongs, rather than pushing it toward surrounding neighborhoods or outward into rural areas. And finally, on building massing, increasing height limits does not eliminate the planning board's role in reviewing design, scale, and context. Project-specific design standards such as facade articulation and street-level activation remain critical tools to ensure that new buildings fit their surroundings. Height alone does not determine whether a building feels compatible. Design does. These parameters should and statutorily must be addressed through the site plan review process as new projects are proposed. From a planning perspective, this proposal aligns with smart growth principles. Concentrating housing near jobs, services, and transit reduces environmental impacts, supports walkability, and makes efficient use of existing infrastructure. Modest increases in height also improve project feasibility, making it more realistic to deliver housing, including affordable units, while supporting local businesses through increased foot traffic. The Workforce Housing Coalition of the Greater Seacoast encourages the Planning Board to move forward with this zoning amendment as a balanced and forward-looking decision. It preserves what people value about downtown Durham while responding to the real housing and economic challenges facing the community and the region today. Thank you for your time, thank you for your consideration, and for the work that you do for the town.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mike Lehrman, Cedar Point Road. This is clearly a difficult issue to decide, and in my sense, this is a judgment call on your part as to what to do with it, and I don't think that more studies or expert advice is going to help you make that decision. I think you all have the basic issues in front of you. I would support either amendment as a step forward towards allowing more opportunities for development in downtown. No one can predict, I don't believe anyone can predict what a particular developer is going to want to do with any particular parcel. So the more flexibility, the better. And in that regard, although I would support either, I would prefer the planning board version, giving more flexibility to what can actually be accomplished on a particular site. I don't want to miss an opportunity over a 4-foot height difference somewhere that someone comes in with a great plan, but they need the extra space for what they're planning to do with it. A lot of focus on the building height of 42, 46, 50 feet, whatever. I think you can get a really ugly 40-foot building that no one's going to like, or you could get a spectacularly designed 50-foot building that a lot of people would say, hey, this is pretty cool. If the design and the building mass are done well, and I don't mean to be repeating the last speaker, but I applaud what her statements were with this, that's really the issue. And I think the architectural standards that you have in place, or maybe that you want to tweak some to try and develop that better, or to be more pointed to it, will manage it. And at the end of the day, a well-designed building, people are not going to differentiate a 4-foot height difference if it looks good at the end of the day and say, oh, it's 2 feet too tall. If it was 2 feet shorter, it'd be great. I also don't think that Durham is in any danger of having a canyon effect. And I think, human scale to me is an impression. It's not a formula based upon how many feet you are standing from the building. It's the impression you get when you walk down in a particular area based upon the particular circumstances there. That there's a million variables involved in that. Could be the east-west orientation or the north-south orientation could be part of it in terms of when you get shadows at the end of the day or whatever. But the streets here are fairly wide, and other than that one little side street that they were just talking about, I don't think it's an issue on the main streets and where you've been more concerned about the building heights. I would like to differentiate the commentary that's been made about adding a dormer, and certainly in an existing building, getting away with a dormer might be fine to accomplish getting a fourth floor on something, but if you're developing a totally new building, and let's say you want to put in condos on the upper floors, and you want to make them small square footage to make them a little bit more affordable maybe, I think most architects and developers are going to want to go for an 8.5 or 9-foot ceiling at a minimum to give it a little more spacious height. And yep, a lot of people have lived in 8-foot high ceilings or 7'9" for a long time, and they get used to it, it's fine. But the modern marketplace is the modern marketplace, and if you're going to try and do a 1,000-foot or 1,100 square foot condo, my guess is developers are going to want to go for a higher ceiling height. And I think they need that flexibility. I don't think it's going to be a killer to do a 50-foot height. You're not going to have a row of a whole street at that height if you put this in. If you put this in and you get a few taller buildings, and after 10 or 15 years from now, you say, you know what, we're getting too many tall buildings, you can always go back and tweak it. So that's my take on it. Thank you very much. I don't relish you the decision-making process there, but I'm sure you're all up to it. So thanks.
Jeff Berlin, 3 Kyle Drive. I just wanted to echo everything that the young lady said behind me. Her comments were brilliant, and same with the gentleman that just spoke. I'd just like to reiterate the thing that was just said about anything that we can remove as a barrier for, don't even call it develop, just call it someone who is here trying to make a living, because honestly, that's me. And if I didn't live in this town, I wouldn't be working with you guys on anything that I'm trying to right now. I have never had the impression that it's worth it, and that's, I think, why we're here and why we have nobody that's willing to do it. So any barriers, not just this one, that you can take so that people who are trying to make projects happen don't have to actually factor little things in, like what we were just talking about, 4 or 5 feet from a height restriction will help greatly. So Paul, thank you for putting this forward, and I hope everyone supports it. Thank you.
Tom Daly, Piscataqua Road. On behalf of myself, Mike Lerman, Ben Bulkey, Don Galini, and Michael Morno, I just want to remind you all that you have received a petition for a resilient downtown aligned Durham zoning with economic goals signed by 105 residents, community members in Durham, that is supportive of either proposal that's being presented tonight. We seek to foster business vitality, enhance long-term resiliency, and to broaden the tax base in Durham. We continue to have comments about the downtown. I'll spare you those at this point in time. But there is a real and serious ask that you will support a step forward in economic development in the CB1 district. As others have said, this is not the end-all be-all, but this is a step forward and indicating to the development community that Durham is open for business is an important next step. Thank you.
Gail Kelly again, 11 Garish Drive. The 50-foot buildings, 50-foot tall buildings would do nothing more to increase the occupancy of the building. It simply increases the ceiling height for the sake of providing the impression of a luxury apartment. Luxury apartments do not meet the need of affordable housing. So the 50-foot building seems to be a non-starter. It's not going to attract more business to town. It's simply going to be out of scale with what we have and will eventually have. So it's just a misconception that 50-foot tall buildings will provide more housing. It will not, luxury apartments are not what recent graduates of UNH or young families need or want. Thank you.
Roger Hayden, Dover, New Hampshire.
Been a lot of great comments made tonight, a lot of good thoughts, a lot of information exchanged. I just wanted to express a simple thought. At some point in life, you have to make a decision. And in my opinion, you're at that point. The business community in downtown Durham is a downward spiral. Currently, I haven't raised rents on 2 of my tenants for 8 years. My taxes have gone up. The water bill for the Delunda Center has doubled in that time. Both businesses I own right now, that I've owned for 25 and 36 years, can't even afford to pay me, the building owner, rent. The only reason Hayden Sports is running and the Durham Laundry Center is functioning is because it doesn't pay any rent. It pays its bills, but that's about what it can pay. So I just want to express the urgency that change is tough. I know a lot of people in Dover don't like some of the new changes in the buildings in Dover. But change is good. Change is going to happen whether you're prepared for it or not. So decision time is here, in my opinion. I'm hoping you make a decision soon so that Durham can get on with it. I'm going to get on with it. Probably in May, I will be closing Hayden Sports in May for lack of rent, lack of sales. And I'll probably close the Durham Laundry Center roughly this summer because it really it barely pays the bills. So that's what I think you're going to be looking at is now there's going to be vacant spaces on Main Street. So regardless of the aesthetics of 45 or 50 feet or 4 stories or 10 stories, we've got to move on here. I've been in town for 36 years. Hayden Sports started in 1988, and it was a whirlwind. And it's dead now. So I can't remember if I've seen any of these people, except for Sally and Al Howland, in my business in the last 10 years. The real irony is right now, probably the best-selling sweatshirt Hayden Sports has ever had is a nice blue sweatshirt, mock turtleneck, and it has an applique of Durham on it. I got in 96 of them a week before Christmas, sold them out in 2 days. I've got 160 right now on sale in the store. And I haven't seen one Durham resident in the town looking at what they might have for Durham. So that's a businessman's perspective. Been around for a long time. It's decision time, folks. I sympathize with you. You're in a tough spot, but you know what? When the going gets tough, the tough gets going, right? So, thanks for listening. Yes.
Do you mind if I ask a couple of questions about your property?
Sure.
The physical aspects?
Absolutely.
I understand one of them, buildings has a basement?
Hayden Sports has a crawl space underneath, 4 foot. Durham Laundry Center has a partial basement that actually right now has 2 old cast iron boilers. So yes, it has maybe some of a basement.
Okay.
Crawl space for the rest of it. The back half is, then the middle there's a basement.
And is it constrained by ledge? Do you know?
I don't think so. I don't know for sure, because if you looked at the building from a side view, this back here is a slab. This is where the basement is. It goes down 10 feet, and then it's a crawl space to Main Street. So I couldn't tell you the details.
And the reason I'm asking these questions is parking, right? Right now, in that zone, we only allow underground parking. We don't, or street level parking. We don't allow first story building parking, right? And as several people mentioned tonight, there's a constraint if you're, based on who you're trying to get into apartments, on whether or not there's parking. So I'm just trying to feel out what the viability of parking, underground parking is at your property.
My guess is that it's good because the old Young's building, Clark's, has a full basement. So you can go down, well, it's not, 10 feet, but there's actually a basement underneath the first floor. Now you do step up a couple of steps to get into it, but there is a basement there. So my guess is that I know further up, in breaking new grounds, the building has a full basement under him. Now the corner lot where the escape room is, I'm not sure. I don't think,
Yeah,
Jay Michael said, I don't think he has slip.
I know Chow's was trying to expand their basement, and we weren't able to be very successful at it because of the amount of ledge they were hitting.
Well, I've got a purchase and sale agreement signed with the developer. There is about a 4.5 foot differential between the sidewalk and the parking lot that the university owns. And then in the back of my business, the university parking lot, and then it goes up about 4.5 feet. So if there was a building there, potentially you'd have a shot at having an underground parking. That would be pretty convenient. I mean, that would enable other apartments, other renters to be living there, like grad students, like I said before, that they might be able to have a parking space.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I, just a few questions? First, are you in favor of the 4-story 50-foot? That's what I think I heard you say, the 4-story 50-foot.
After hearing all of the discussion, I'm with the gentleman that said saying the 50-foot would open it up to people listening. Technically, 45, 50 feet. I'm not an engineer, an architect, and I just listen to the people, but it's one of these discussions. I think you've gotten bogged down with the details. I know you have to solve the details. They say it's always in the details. But you don't get bogged down with the details. You've got to make something happen because it is dying. I know other business owners I've talked to downtown, if they didn't have a longer lease, if they didn't own the building, they'd say, I can't wait to get out of here because nothing changes. Change is part of life. So, long answer, sorry.
And then just to follow up on that, it sounds like you're sort of closing down after 30 years, and I know you brought a lot of vibrancy to the town. Do you have any big picture, any ideas that you think, since this might be the last time you're in front of this group, that you might leave us with for other things that might be considered here? I don't mean to open it up too much, but you seem to have a wealth of knowledge in it. We might want to take that opportunity to sort of hear some feedback from someone who's been downtown for so long.
For what businesses we need or for structures?
Okay.
Gathering spaces, businesses.
I guess, what would you imagine to help renovate the downtown?
I think the buildings, previously when I spoke, I was against the 42-foot because why not give the designer, builder, whatever you want to call it, they've all got a bad name, whatever you want to call it, give them a little discretion so that the first floor can be 15 feet instead of 12. If it's going to be if it's going to be commercial, retail, this is nice. How many feet is this, Mike? What's this? 12, 15?
Gosh.
12?
Yeah, it's more like 20, I think.
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is nice, right? You got to walk into a retail store that's selling clothing or whatever it is. This is nice. It's got air space. You can have a smaller retail space with higher ceilings that gives the customer the same feel. You go into some of the older businesses. There's a great place up in North Conway. I can't remember what it is. It's an old shop, and it's got low ceilings. I mean, it's an acre of a store, and you feel good in there, even though you got to, I mean, I've got one of my son's friends is 6'7", he'd be ducking his head. But you don't feel cramped because there's so much space. Well, you can get that feel with high ceilings. That's why high ceilings in nice apartments are so important. You can have a 10 by 14 bedroom that feels great if you have a 15-foot ceiling. That's where that comment came from. From a design point of view, I just want the developers to be able to apply. They're experts in building. Why not take that as input?
So, I'm not trying to interrupt the.
Oh, no,
the dis-
thank you
I'm
very
just
much.
looking at the clock. If we're going to talk about stuff, we might want to keep moving.
Sure. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Roger.
Are there any hands in Zoom?
Not at the moment.
I'm still Daniel Day. I'm still from 89 Baghdad Road. First request for the sound person. Can we turn the gain down on these mics? The feedback is killing my ear. Just wanted to echo a couple of things. Someone earlier mentioned a lot of great things we used to have in Durham that we no longer have anymore. The Celebrity Series, the New England Center, the pharmacy now. Now we're losing a store that has really been a big part of our town's identity. And now we're losing a laundromat. We're losing a lot of very basic services here. And as I said previously, solving the building height issue is not going to change a lot of these issues, but it's part of an overall broader picture right now. I encourage you, we're at a desperate time for our town. You're on the side of flexibility right now. See what developers have planned, and don't worry so much about arbitrary numbers, number of stories, number of feet. Instead, think about the bigger picture right here and what we can do to save our town. Thank you.
Joshua Meyer, 7 Chesley Drive. So my hearing is not good. I echo what Deborah said, so I almost went home to hear. So I may not have entirely heard what Tom and the workforce housing people said, but my understanding is that they were supporting one of these changes to increase the height on Main Street and allow for more housing. If that's what they were saying, I support that. I just don't support the 50-foot height. And I know Roger was also saying, 45 might as well work, but he didn't think the old 42. But I would also add that in addition to the problem of parking, and maybe that's solvable in terms of what the UNH says, they may have support for a parking structure in the campus crossing. But without parking, it's not only the problem of maybe it was Roger who mentioned other, older graduate students or whatever. I would encourage everybody to look at the videos that I submitted of Main Street during the Mill Plaza review, where it's very, very lively till about 2 a.m. Not compatible with families or seniors. And personally, it was fine with me. I like a little liveliness, but it's not going to be supportive of non-students in that area. So I just say I'm not against the change. I'm not against an increase in height. I support what Beth said and her endorsement of Rob Sullivan's proposal. And I think, and also as you may recall, I spoke pretty forcefully in favor of the workforce housing out on Route 4, not only supporting it, but recommending a lot of things that could make it sort of a new Durham neighborhood that had parking and other potential. So, but also keep in mind that just change and increasing size is not always good. Remember the big push for electric heating, and a lot of people had to completely redo their houses to take out the electric heating. So I think you have to think in terms of all the variables that have been presented. And yes, I think you do need to make a decision, and I think we can have an increase in height, but within reason and with all the support of our architectural standards and design and the input and the research and the visuals that you've seen, and just bigger is not necessarily better. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Manish?
I'm aware of the time constraint, and I just wanted to ask if I could ask Roger a quick question.
Roger Hayden?
Yes, if I could ask Roger Hayden a quick question. So, I know we're talking about, zoning amendments and so on and so forth, but I'd love to get your perspective on one issue. I've been a resident of the town for almost 25 years. And my understanding of all the businesses in the downtown Durham, my ignorant understanding, because I'm not a business person, was the addressable market was mostly, the UNH students and UNH, whatever. You're talking about, how businesses in downtown Durham are really, facing pressure and dwindling and so on and so forth. And again, my perception is that when downtown Durham was, say, bustling 20 years ago, it was not necessarily because people from Hampton or Portsmouth or Dover were coming here to support the businesses. It was because of the local population supporting the businesses, right? So I would love to get your opinion very quickly
Exactly right.
on what's changed and why is that changed? Because to me, I'm trying to get that connection between what's changed and all these amendments and this, that, and the other.
20, 30 years ago, when I moved into town in '88, when I started the store, we had 2 hardware stores, Stewart Shane's Men's Shop, a number of other businesses. And it was full of townspeople. There were a lot of events that I remember that, well, we opened our doors. I was in the basement below Durham House of Pizza, so it was kind of tough. It was really a student store. And then I bought the building from Jackie Strauss and kept it as a gift shop. And in '99, and over the next about 8 years, I closed it, 5 years. I closed it 5 years later in 2006 and moved Hayden Sports upstairs because gift shops had gone out of favor. And this is kind of the beginning of the internet shopping, a little bit, not really, but the mall, a lot of people would go to the mall. Do you remember the Main Street program, Main Street USA? We got the Durham Business Association, the town of Durham, and the university each pooled $20,000 to make $60,000. We hired somebody to run the Main Street program to revitalize downtowns nationwide. A lot of support. And it talked about integrating a lot of different age groups in it. You have to have stores for everybody. And that's what's missing now. It is a student downtown now. I can't tell you, every business owner I've talked to in Durham right now there's nobody downtown. I mean, the students aren't here now because it's break. So I open at 11 some days, close at 2. I'm looking at a sales of $100 a day. I can't even afford to have the young lady that happens to be working for more than 4 hours. It's a student downtown. We saw that spiral coming years ago, but things plod along in Durham, so change was resisted. I'm not placing blame or anything. Change has been resisted for so long to keep Durham quaint, and New England town, and all of these wonderful things. The trouble is you can't control change. But that's exactly what it was, is 25, 30 years ago. It was townspeople that came downtown. Good?
Good, thanks. All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
May I speak again?
In the time that he was talking about, went into Newmarket and it was dead. All those old stores there. Morelli's Fruit and Real Estate was still doing business. That was about it. There wasn't any grocery store. There weren't any restaurants. Durham was thriving. Now you walk in, or you drive into Newmarket. Newmarket is a vibrant town. Durham is dead. So, okay, the change is not going to be addressed, or the changes we need to see are not going to be addressed by building height, by looking into what can Durham offer that the internet can't, that Portsmouth can't, Dover can't. Well, its own eateries, and Doug Clark made a valiant effort to make that happen. But the perception was, as Mr. Hayden has pointed out, Durham is a student town. So all it offers is pizza and beer and a burger. And that's why Doug Clark's Ciao Italia restaurant just couldn't make it. So it takes some time to sit down and think, oh, what can Durham offer? There are other towns that have faced this, but they don't have the same kinds of challenges that Durham does. Because Durham has Dover to shop in and Portsmouth. But does it have a custom furniture studio? Thomas Moser started his furniture business, which is now on Fifth Avenue in New York, out of a garage.
Gail, I'm sorry to interrupt, but these kind of anecdotes, I think we've gotten a lot of them tonight, and I think we have a good sense of the decline. I'm not trying to end the public hearing prematurely, but is there anything specific that you think applies to the decision we have to make tonight? We got a good sense of why downtown's dead.
These are specific matters that apply to the discussion tonight. And Mr. Hayden posed the question, what happened? That's what happened. Downtowns go through declines and then upswings. That's the nature of commercial development. We just need to take the time to figure out what it is that Durham can do other than more student housing to make it a town for Durham.
And you did bring up Newmarket, so I just would want to, I lived through that. I mean, I'm like 1 mile from Newmarket, so I go to Newmarket all the time. I remember when the Newmarket Mill was nothing.
Right.
That's a massive structure. Some might say that's not human scale. 30-foot ceilings.
It's a beautiful piece of architecture.
I don't think you'd be able to build that today. That's a massive mill.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say when that was redeveloped, there was new life in Newmarket.
That's right.
All of a sudden you had hundreds of people living there, and they want to go across the street to eat dinner. Dover, you have a massive mill in Dover that was dilapidated. That you have 3 of them, maybe 4, big, tall buildings, tall ceilings that now have residential development, and people go across the street to eat. So I would just say that when you bring up Newmarket, I would just wanted to just make the point that I think what happened there was you brought a lot of housing right downtown. And that it was a lot of renovation that took place, and that, so I just, as you mentioned that, I was a mile from there, and I remember it taking place, and I say, doggone it, I didn't buy a condo there, because they were $130,000. Now they're not, but a lot of people live in them.
True, but that was a town using an asset that it had. Durham has torn down its old historic buildings, and downtown Newmarket did not. Those old storefronts are from the 19th century.
It's interesting I thank you very much. That's my question.
We have a hand in Zoom.
Okay.
Robin, you're up.
Hi. I'm not unmuting the video, starting the video. 2 things. I have listened to most of this evening's discussions, which range from people who know nothing about the state enabling legislation and the need for ordinances to respect neighbors and so forth, to some very good comments, including, I think that there's something to be said for, quote, sending a message that we're open for business. However, I would also strongly urge you to give a great weight to Doug Banks's observations. He is a professional. We really need professional input, and we have not had that until very recently in these discussions. Rob Sullivan's input, as Beth particularly has emphasized, is invaluable. And I'd like to respond to the comments about the vibrancy of Newmarket and Portsmouth and so forth. It's not just about housing. It's also, those towns are vibrant in part because they have a distinct sense of place with a unique character. People value a sense of place. It can drive community engagement, social capital, and economic vitality. So we don't want to give away the soul of Durham. Yes, it's pretty spotty and run down, but I think that to let anything go is going to let the soul of Durham go. I urge you to consider that central section of Main Street as unique, not to try to emulate whatever's going on at UNH. And in my opinion, I don't even care as much about what's set far back from Main Street. Maybe you even want to consider Fifth Story. But I think that that central stretch of Main Street, as you've heard from the many residents via the letter that they signed, that is valuable. That, in part, in addition to Churchill and some other features of Durham, creates a sense of place for them.
Are you done, Robin?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I would just suggest you Google the images of the mill in Newmarket, because just from my preliminary looking at it, it looks like part of it is underground, and it's like two and a half to 3 stories above ground from the front. The back, I think, goes down lower because along the river, and of course it's a huge building, but it was there already. But I don't think it's not 4 or 5 stories from what I can tell.
I think that probably depends on how you're looking at it, because of course, if you're coming in from Durham and you look to the
Right,
left,
that's why I said
there's that whole
I didn't ask
fairly
you to
large
believe-
structure.
just look at it yourselves. You have better technology in front of you than I do.
I think the point, though, was that residential density adds retail vibrancy, not that the architecture of the mill was a model.
Right. It's about the density of human beings.
Cut you off from comments.
The moving chair.
Anne Marie Harris, 56 Oyster River Road. As one of the longest residents in this room, I believe, since 1969, and having watched many projects that would have enhanced long-term the vibrancy of the community, including the Mill Pond Center that was defeated to be an art center, if some of you will recall, and our architectural winning Mill Plaza redevelopment way back in the 80s, I guess it was, or something like that. I would just like to endorse Doug Banks' perspective and the thoughtful, long-time residents caring about the community character. And as far as economic development goes, it would be wonderful to have vibrancy, but I'm not expecting my taxes are going to go down when we have a lot of development either. If we can stabilize the tax base, that would be quite an accomplishment. But maybe we have too many services in the town. I remember when we did everything by volunteers. We didn't have a recreation director, a director of all sorts of things. It was actually more community-oriented through the schools to a large extent. However, I would not expect that it's going to be a successful venture to go to 50 feet. And I think if we could preserve at least the couple of blocks on Main Street and give it a facelift and a little bit more space for housing. But it's going to turn into student housing, we know that. The university now is requiring students not just as freshmen to live in dorms, they are also requiring them to live there for a second year, sophomores. And that's part of the reason that we have maybe the rents will go down. I mean, it's $1,000 a month to rent anything in town per student. It's really high. Anyway, I endorse Beth Olshansky's thoughtful and long presentation, and I think she represents many, many people in the town besides the 250 that have signed a petition. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Folks, Tom Daly, Piscataqua Road, speaking only for myself this time. I think it's important to point out that UNH enrollment is going down. The rental community, the commercial community in Durham, if you analyze the tax basis from 2024 going into 2025, which a number of us have, we've shifted approximately $3.6 million of tax basis from commercial to residential. And my understanding of that is directly related to the supply of student housing in downtown Durham and a lack of demand, presumably related to the on-campus requirement for sophomores to stay on campus, as well as declining UNH enrollment. I've heard a lot of concerns about more student housing being built downtown. As a business person, I can't imagine building more student housing in downtown Durham right now. Thank you.
Anyone else? Richard?
Let's close the public hearing.
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, before we kick into deliberation, I want to remind the board that we technically have 3 plans on the table. We have the 2 that we had public hearings on tonight, and we have the original one that we sent to the town council. We could always choose to send that one back, say, of all the things we've looked at, we still endorse this the most. But we would definitely need to provide reasoning, strong reasoning behind that type of choice.
Why don't we go over what that original one was? Just, we have a lot in our heads.
Going over the original one, it was removing the 3-story limit. And I think that's all we were doing.
It was a 5th by conditional use.
Well, the 5th by conditional use was just, it was not being touched. So what the second
So just the,
second option for tonight was to make 4 stories everywhere and remove the conditional use. So the one that we sent to the town council originally was make 4 stories everywhere
Right.
and allow the 5th by conditional use.
and there was no height. There was no height mentioned.
There was no
It was
height
just
mentioned.
the 4th story.
It was, and that's because the height stuff was all already built into the conditional use aspects of, paragraph of what would be allowed for a 5th story in terms of additional height.
I have a procedural question.
Yes.
Before we begin. Would it be more efficient if we focused on exactly where we want to end up based on on what we've heard and what's before us, and then kind of back into the best mechanism to get there in the resolutions that are before us? Or is that not something you would support?
Really what I'm hoping to get out of this is that we make a decision tonight as to what we're going to, which of
Right,
these
that's
things
what I'm
we're
urging.
doing.
In other words, I'm kind of like, I'm wondering whether we should focus on exactly what we want, how we want to regulate as the initial matter, where we want to end up, maybe using Rob's proposal as a starting point, and then so that we don't have to go, try to harmonize the different proposed ordinances and so forth. I don't know. It's up to you, clearly, as the chair.
If we take anything that we've already public hearinged and modify it too much, then we go back to another public hearing, and we'll have the same thing as tonight. We'll have another
Michael's
2.5
about to say
hours.
something.
Paul, can I just want to raise a point. Paul, we had a conversation earlier today, Paul and I. The standard is that after you have a public hearing on an amendment, that if you make significant changes in what you want to put forward, you need another public hearing. So, but the question arises, at least with the two that we have public hearing before you tonight, the council's version has two specific height limits, 32 feet and 42 feet. And the planning board's version has one height limit of 50 feet. And as I thought about this earlier, very conservatively, I thought, well, if the planning board wants to change either of those, we would need a new public hearing. However, I've given that more thought, and I think you have, in my opinion, you have flexibility on those numbers tonight. If you were to make, you could go forward with the numbers as written, or you could change those. And as long as you're not changing those hugely, my opinion is you can certainly do that, because there's been so much discussion in tremendous depth, repeatedly. Nobody could make a claim that they're disenfranchised because you've made some adjustment in height tonight without a new public hearing.
Well,
So
I'm not
I think
saying
you
that
can
we
do that if you wish.
I'm just saying we first deal with the policy and the vision, and then perhaps we'll end up without any need to change. We'll end up settling on a particular ordinance that's
So
before us.
are you suggesting, I'm having trouble understanding what your intent is there. So are you saying we just like talk about building height first and then figure out what we think a good building height?
Yeah, just figure out what we want to permit, how we want the process to work, and how much reliance we want to place on the architectural design standards and the site review process. Have that discussion about because that's something I'd like to hear too, so that I'll and then decide
well,
which of the
Heather, we should start talking on something soon. Heather?
So I'm just saying, just to confirm with what Michael's saying, is like you said, anything 50 and below, obviously, if we went to 49, we wouldn't need another public hearing.
Or even,
If you went to
even
50
45, I don't think you would.
But if you went to 51, you'd have to.
Yeah, you
And
would,
that's
if
what
you
I'm-
would, yes.
Just so
But
I
if
get
it's
that point.
anything
Yeah,
lower,
exactly.
within reason,
Right.
you've
50
talked it all
yeah.
through.
Got it.
All right. Did you want to add something, Richard, or should I start
ready.
with our first bullet point?
Yeah, I'm going to let you all know that I'm kind of on a short fuse in terms of battery on my computer and battery in my head. So if we're going to discuss specifics on this zoning, we probably should start that.
Okay. I need to get it rolling, Peyton. Okay. So let's leave your questions for when we hit the point.
I just think we should, given the amount of turnout here and given what we've heard and what people have before them, it would be my recommendation that we would go for one of those two proposals coming down at us that people have already read and already made public statements on.
No, yeah,
I would not introduce a third.
I would be inclined to go for one of those two
and then move that forward.
I want to cut to the chase.
Correct.
Okay.
Me too.
So I think one of the key things we should review would be, all right, the architectural standards are part of the site plan regs, right? Things like should roofs be sloped or flat or whatever belong in the site plan regs with the architectural standards, not in the zoning.
Right.
All right?
We have nothing to say.
So
that was my point to get to that.
And that was my, so that sort of like just kills what the town council sent back because they're trying to put site plan regulations into the zoning, inappropriate use of the zoning ordinance.
We already have the site plan. Those
So-
rules will be followed.
To get something going, what do you guys think about the notion that's on this piece of paper that says a proposed fourth floor with a pitch roof, requiring a pitch roof, and the pitch roof could go all the way up to 50 feet, or it could end at 45 and go flat I'm not exactly sure that there's a big difference between the 45 and 50 feet if we say it's a pitched roof. By saying it's a pitched roof, that kind of sets in place all this, human scale thing and all that. The alternative is what we already proposed, which was 4 stories, 50 feet. Those are kind of the two options that are up to debate here.
I'll jump in. I'm inclined for maximum flexibility. I don't think, and I don't necessarily want to impose some aesthetic judgment that then drives some architectural design, possibly quite limiting. There were public comments that you may want to have condos up there and they might want to have nice balconies. So, if someone's putting their money on the line for a 4-story, 50-foot building, I think it's, and I have plenty of pictures of terrific looking 4-story, 50-foot buildings that don't have that.
So that sounds to me, Peyton, like you're saying what we sent back the other day, the 4-story, 50-foot is the position that you think makes the most sense.
I do. I mean, I'm inclined to go higher than 50 feet, but I don't think that this is the appropriate time to do that. I mean, could you make the case for that? Sure. But given what we have in front of us right now, I would say 4-story, 50 feet, and we don't impose all these restrictions for some sort of aesthetic judgment that may or may, and we can all find examples of buildings that are terrific in all cases.
And in that case, that would be kind of saying like, okay, we as a planning board thought about the human scale thing and we don't think it should be the driving factor. We're saying
I
if
have
it
a
ends
hard
up,
time buying human scale that there's a human scale issue at 4 stories. If we were to say 10 stories, I might consider it.
I also would be, 95 to 99% of the zone doesn't have a human scale issue. It's only a really tiny part of the downtown that would actually have that problem.
But from the public perspective, I think what I'd like to hear is some assurance that if we I'd like to send a signal of maximum flexibility, not just so much because I want to be a cheerleader for development, although I do want to be a cheerleader for development, but also because I think that if you have these architectural design standards for a reason, they're the venue for people. People can look at this and they can, you have professionals out there, architects, brilliant people, and we, as a planning board, we know something, but we shouldn't chill the creativity of professionals who may put something in front of us that is more brilliant than we imagined. And can we rely on the site plan review and the architectural design process to provide sufficient protection so that the public can be assured that that process is not going to result in something, hideous that breaks up the whole downtown? I'm inclined to think yes, we can rely on it. We can rely on the staff to do that, and that's the appropriate way to have both the energy and the sense of possibility from developers bringing new ideas and re-energizing town and embracing change rather than fearing every change and thinking that it's all just going to be a bunch of drunken students wandering around if we allow anything,
okay,
that's
so
kind of where I
Gary,
am.
Practically, what's that proposal look like? 4 stories, 50 feet with architectural standards to protect it?
4 stories, 50 feet, architectural standards to protect it.
There's another reason for 50 feet. One is we don't live in our own bubble, right? And what we have is we have our neighboring towns. And contrary to what was said, our neighboring towns, so here's Dover, there's the general sub-district of their CBD, which is the bulk of their, what you would think of as their central business district, is a 5-story building. And that covers everything inside this green dotted line that's not shaded for the downtown. So that's at the very top there, you've got the hospital, and it goes all the way down through, you can see here Washington Street, where Washington Central comes into play. This, the Aqua area is the Dover train station area, and then it goes down, Central Ave goes down. So all of that is 5 stories allowed in Dover. The transportation zone is it this one here? That's their mixed-use zone. Their mixed-use zone, contrary to what you'd think, it's mixed use from this viewpoint of it's their transition into their residential, pure residential zones. They have a 3-story maximum. Makes sense. And then you have their gateway areas, 4-story max. So those are representing the major routes in from Somersworth and into town. And then lastly, you've got the transit-oriented, again, 5-story max with a 3-story minimum. So Dover's gone so far as to say, hey, we believe in minimums as well as maximums. And what you'll notice here is in these sub-districts, they've given up talking about building heights. Their standards are things like, you know, let's work it in with, you know, with what's appropriate for that particular neighborhood or part of the downtown, because they represent that the different parts of their downtown have different needs. But there's 5 stories. Portsmouth.
So we have the Yankees, the Mets, and the Cubs now.
No, I think the thing is, though, is that...
what my point here, Portsmouth, you've got 50 feet and 60 feet for their business districts. And that's Portsmouth's map, which I won't get into. And then lastly, Newmarket here is Structure Heights on the far right there. You can see it's 50 feet in 3 of their zones. Those 3 zones are the ones right here, the dark green, the pink in the middle, and that violet colored one just to the right of them. That's their 50-foot zone in Newmarket. So if I'm a developer, I've got money to spend, I'm going to go to where the 50 feet are. I'm not going to go somewhere that's saying I'm not open for business.
So are you saying you want, you're back in the, and I'm trying to get to people put some stuff on the table so we can have a real debate. Are you saying you're at 4 stories, 50 feet?
I'm at 4 stories, 50 feet.
With the conditional use for 5 stories?
I would be open with conditional use for 5 stories, but you know, my thought with the 5 stories is the 5 stories belongs at the upper end of the western side of Pettibrook, where it abuts the thing. I'd really like to see, and it's in that draft memo, the last paragraph of that draft memo, where I'd like to come through as a follow-on effort. Let's get this in play so that the people who are there saying, I want to spend money, can actually have the confidence to get started in their process.
Okay.
And then we can come in and actually allocate specific areas for a 5th story.
I'm there. So what's this? Richard, do you have a this?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Unfortunately, I should just shut my mouth up and just go with one of these, but I don't. I look at our downtown, and after listening to what everyone has talked about here, Rob, I heard a lot about Rob's option, and I don't see that in front of me necessarily.
And it's really not
your option?
We should clarify.
Yeah.
Rob's option is nothing more than taking Nick's Isaac's detail and Doug Banks' detail and the aesthetic interest of the people, you know, a lot of the public input, and so it really results in this blue or green roof. It's not any brilliance on Rob. I just put those 2 things on the same piece of paper and showed that we're not that far apart. We're really close. If we said it's a pitched roof is required, then we satisfied a lot of the public input.
And that's what I want to jump on, all right, very quickly, because when I look up Main Street, I see a need for that, you know, at Polly's and going into Churchill. I think that would really work there. And you look at the buildings there, you know, Polly's ain't coming down, and Nick's ain't coming down, but Scorpion, something's going to change there, right?
Yeah.
And across the street, you think about Mr. Henderson's properties, and like, those aren't going to change either. But those are 3 stories with dormers. So in that location, I think the idea of having a requirement for the proposed 4th floor with a pitched roof in either 45 or 50 works well with our town. But, you know, from where the Madbury Road Triangle is, or not Madbury Road, but Oyster River Road Triangle, and that area, my goodness, we're not going to have a canyon effect. You know, we just have too much real estate on the university side to ever achieve that. You could go up 5, 6 stories and it's still going to look okay. You're going to have this big expansive view because Huddleston ain't moving in either. That's not going to change either. So I support what you're saying here with the pitch roof requirement on certain lots as we go through our downtown to somehow save the soul of our downtown. But outside of that, I'm fine with 4 at 50.
Do we need to put this into the, wouldn't that come out in the wash? And can the town planner speak to this? I mean, would the town planner and the site review process pick up a situation where they put up a flat roof building in the areas that Richard's talked about? And would you say, no, I don't think so?
Yeah, I think the architecture regulations they're strong, and there's a lot of detail, and they're also flexible.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I have pictures from Dover, Portsmouth, and surrounding towns where you have beautiful 4- and 5-story buildings with flat roofs. They have balconies surrounding them.
It depends on the context.
I mean, I'm not sure. I know there's an aesthetic drive to do something here that's reminiscent of an error, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, you have a lot of new buildings that are terrific, that are flat story. They're 4 and 5 and 6, and they have beautiful, you know, wraparound decks. So for me, and then I think we kind of, almost the reason we're here anyway is that one day we're looking at the downtown zoning, we're like, why are all these lots 3-story? When did that come in? So I'm against sort of like having sort of this is this, you know, this has to be, these 3 lots have to follow this. And I think we already have the zone. I would simplify it and I would say the zone is by right 4-story 50 building, 50 feet, and you know, you can take some creative license. I think when people are spending money, they probably want to spend that as wisely as possible, and they're going to make the best judgment, you know, when they're doing it, because they want to attract tenants, and they want to attract customers, and they want to have people in the condos. So I kind of think I'm inclined, if I'm spending my money, to make it as suitable as possible for, you know, clientele. So that's where I'm at. I would be fine as well as visiting 5 and potentially higher stories. When I go to other college towns, there's a lot of mixed use. There are a lot of different building sizes. It's very vibrant, it's very active, and it's terrific. So,
Well, she could also remember, there was 76 Main Street is a flat roof that we approved. The one on the corner of Pettybrook and Main Street, that was a flat roof that we approved. That had a lot of community support.
You mean Doug's?
Doug's, yeah. the
Doug's,
one-
which is, yeah, and he's, that,
Flat roof.
yeah. And just, I guess, my last, I just don't like this sort of death by 1,000 cuts, where it's just like one thing after another, after another, after another, and then before you know it, it's just not viable. So I'm really I would go for simplification and streamlining and keep it as simple as you possibly can.
So, Paul, we're not going to make a decision tonight. It's not going to happen. I'd be very surprised, given the hour. Do we want to? I'm game to stay here all night if that's needed. But
well, you know, I think what I'd like to do right now is effectively let's take a first, because what I'm hearing, I think we've already made a decision. I think we have a majority that says let's go with the 4 stories throughout with a 50-foot. Based on what people have been saying.
And I want to go around the room. There's a few people yet.
And then a question is setback or no setback, and that's bringing Doug's piece back in. The setback, if you drive that in, that does the
that's
softening.
Architectural standards stuff, I think, in my opinion.
I would agree with that.
I'm totally against any setback. I don't know how other people think about it, but I mean, the idea of the sloped roofs covered in architectural standards, I'm okay with that. But given the different, again, throughout this the zone, you have a lot of different plot sizes, and not all of them are going to be conducive to a setback.
So this is my ignorance. Does the architectural standards say you're required to have a pitched roof on the street or
No, they
not?
don't require it, but you have to satisfy the board that your design at this particular site meets the goals, and its height, its scale, its proportion, its materials, its fenestration. I mean, it's very detailed. Now, you know, how that discussion goes, it's everyone is different. And, you know, some property owners and their architects are a little more flexible and creative, and some are a little more rigid. And you got to work with people. But they're strong, and they should, they give you a lot of, you know, what you need.
Can I ask a clarifying question, a little bit for my own newness and ignorance, and a little bit just for like putting it into the record and putting it out in the room? I just want to confirm, every new building, whether it's under the 42 foot, the 50 foot, every new building has to align with the design standards, correct?
Right. Every building in this zone and in all of the core commercial zones, the central zones.
And every new building has to propose itself before the planning board for review and confirmation that it aligns to those design standards.
But it's usually there's some back and forth, dare I say, negotiation between the board, the staff, the owner, and their architects.
Except for residential.
Except for
certain
single
residential,
family,
and
two duplex.
and
But, you know.
But in a business zone, they have to come here.
Non-residential and commercial.
Okay, great. Wanted to put that in. And the final point that I just want to like state for the record is I think something really important to consider. I very much value that there are residents coming out to voice their opinions, but there are residents voicing their opinions, some of which are and some of which are not professionals, but we also have actual business owners and potential developers voicing support for the 50-foot amendment with the ability to have that flexibility that will obviously still have to conform to the design standards. And I think that is valuable.
Peter?
So earlier today or yesterday, Michael sent out, and there was a question I had about how we define roof height in Durham. And having just been through the house building process, it's on a sloping roof, it's defined as the average or the middle of the midpoint on the slope. And so we need to be careful when we're throwing around 45 and 50 that we're either differentiating that and essentially changing the rules of how height is defined in this district, or just make it 45, recognizing that if it's a 10-foot floor, your halfway point vertically is going to be somewhere around 45 feet if your max is 50.
When I read the table says maximum height. When I do plain reading of maximum height, it's not doing that half thing. It's saying maximum height. To me, that's the top shingle where the seagull lands.
Well, that's one difference between the two proposals tonight with the public hearings. The one proposed by the council gives its own definition of maximum height for a sloped roof. With a sloped roof, it's actually the top of the sloped roof, and it assumes you've got a flat roof on top, so it's right here. With the planning board's proposal, it relies on the standard language in the ordinance, which is to the eave. So that's the same, for a flat roof, it goes to the eave. But with a pitched roof, it goes to the midpoint. So with the planning board's proposal, if it's 50 feet, then that height limit goes to the middle of your slope. But there's a reason for that.
No, I understand.
It's an aesthetic reason, because with a sloped roof, you have less impact. This is comparable in impact to a flat roof there.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. And the reason I brought it up is I think that not everyone understands that that's how our ordinance reads at this point for slope roofs. And when they say 50, when we're talking 50 feet, I think there's an assumption, some board members, that that's the maximum elevation at the ridge line, not the midpoint.
Right.
And we need to be clear as a board what it is we're talking about here, because right now we're not.
And just so I'm clear what I'm talking about, at that top highest point would be the ridge. The ridge is that top board going across, the highest point of the roof. I'm not talking about the midpoint thing that Michael's referencing.
But our ordinances are written to talk about the midpoint, so we need to be careful either in how we draft this, or we need to, well, we have to be careful how we draft this no matter what. But we need to be clear what we're talking about, because we have two different definitions floating around now.
We don't. I have, but when you read maximum height in that table, that means the highest point.
Well,
To
no,
the ridge.
with
To the ridge.
no, it's for a pitched roof everywhere in Durham. It's the midpoint of the slope. The only exception for that is the council's ordinance, which wrote its own definition for maximum height for a sloped roof. But the council's definition is not really your conventional gable like this. The council's definition is when you have, here's the street, your ridge is parallel, your gable's on the side, is that it does this. So really it's really a flat roof building. The only slope is the front of it to create that sense of a sloped fourth floor.
So they do to the top of the gable?
Yeah, I mean, we're defining the ridge right here, which is different from a conventional gable. So, it works.
But the problem with the council's interpretation of that is it's telling what the design has to be. It's controlling what the building is supposed to look like. There's no flexibility at all, and there's no opening for invention and just a beautiful building. And most people want to build beautiful buildings, and I'm sitting around this table, we're pretty fussy about it, as I have seen. We don't just let anything fly by. So I'm not really at all in favor of the council's interpretation. I just don't have a lot of confidence in the way they reached it. But I mean, I like the 4 feet, and I mean the 4 stories and 50 feet. And one of the reasons why is, number one, you need that flexibility. But secondly, people keep talking about, I'm not going to worry about high apartments. We're talking about the retail space. The retail space needs more room. And the stuff that goes into making things warm and making things cool and fans and all this HVAC that's going to be between all of these buildings needs room. And if we are too tight, they're going to be squeezing things in. But what we want is more retail space. Like Roger had mentioned, we want that feeling of air in the retail space. People are forgetting that with these developments, we will be getting new quality, high-end retail space that will bring in higher quality and a more variety of businesses. The apartments also, do you really want to be in a 7-foot ceiling?
Yeah, but the council's proposal it actually is straightforward. All it is saying is your third floor eave is here, whether it's 32 or 35, whatever you want to make it. All it is saying is that your fourth floor either has to have a pitch or a setback. I mean, it's pretty simple.
But it's not simple when it comes to
you can tonight,
development.
if you don't like those numbers, I think you can raise the 32 and the 42 tonight if you wish.
Well, I don't like the setback, and I don't think I can just remove the setback.
Well, that's up to you. But I mean, their proposal, it is simple. It's not, all it is saying 3 floors and your fourth floor either has a slope or a setback.
If you were going to amend the council's proposal to raise the height limit, then why wouldn't you just go with the raised height limit with flexibility and no enforcement of what the roof line looks like when there are multiple options beyond a ridge roof or a setback?
Yeah, those are, well, that depends on how you want to approach it. You have 2 approaches. One of them is saying that we want assurance that the fourth floor is going to be treated very carefully. It's very important, and so that's going to be written into the ordinance that the fourth floor, particularly in the sensitive easterly section, is going to be treated very sensitively, and that all that means is you're either going to have a pitch or you're going to have a setback, as opposed to straight fourth floor, which is simple, you know. The other option is saying, you know, they're both fine. Either one of these is going to work. The other one is just saying it's 50 feet, 4 stories, rely on the architecture regulations, which are not quite as strong as putting it in the ordinance.
Do we need a motion
Either one
to
of these
vote on
works.
something?
I'm just wondering where we're going. Right now, we seem to be going in circles.
We
so
are. We need a motion to vote on something. If we don't like it, we reject it and circle back again.
Yep. So, Richard, you started to go somewhere. Did you get to where you wanted to be?
I guess so. You know, I'm looking at the, this pitched option, the Rob option, if you will.
Let's not call it that.
All right.
I don't like that.
I didn't
call
think-
it.
all right.
Let's call it the 35-45 option.
Okay.
35 feet at the eave.
So we got 4 at 50 and the 35-45 option.
So Rob, yours would just be the council's, but it would go to 35 and 45?
It would be a
rather than
35
32?
feet at the eave, 45 feet at the max height, and it, you know, it would have the setback. And the setback would, just like this shows, it would force either a pitched roof if somebody wanted that, or it would force a flat top with the pushback wall, the front wall. And if somebody really wants to maximize the space, they go with that green line on this piece of paper and put a dormer on it.
And the only thing with that is, to Sally's point, all of a sudden we're introducing a bunch of constraints that they now need to design around. And there might be good reasons for that. I guess you could. People have made the case that they're good reasons.
The architectural design process. We may see this at the end of the architectural
People
review
might just
process,
do
or
that.
We
Just-
might
they might
raise
just say,
it.
"Hey, this is a
and,
great idea."
We might raise it when we're looking at it after the application.
One more point, I realize I've been talking a lot and I'm the
No,
newbie
no,
and
no.
I'm maybe
You're good.
not
No.
like the most qualified, but I did read through the design standards today, and one of the things that it mentions was specifically calling for a desire and a need for architectural diversity. And if you put enforcements on how every building has to look, it has to have this or this, and those are your only options on your fourth floor, then you reduce your available options of having actual architectural diversity.
I wouldn't worry about that. I think, you know, it's either the councils or they both work just fine. Neither one of them is going to suppress creativity, especially because you're only talking about a handful of lots. There's a million ways that you can have a pitch roof or a setback with different materials, different styles. You're not going to be constraining.
That is-
in my opinion, you're not constraining creativity.
For those,
That's my opinion.
for those handful of lots that you're talking about, Michael, where you have this, it would not constrain anything. It would still give the 45 feet height, still give the 4 stories, and then as some of the public opinion says, that it would probably maybe go a step further in preserving that vibe of the town for just that small portion where, you know, where it sort of matters. So that might be a plus.
Yeah, I'm not advocating either one. Either one of them works well. It depends on how you just want to approach it.
Part of my logic on the 35-50, 35-45 is I don't think we should send something to the town council that is not approvable. So if we say, you know, 35 and it can go up to 70 feet, I don't think it's going to make it. So why are we sending that up if it's not approvable? So the 35-45 or 35-50, I'm not attached to either because Doug kind of spoke like the 50 reads the same way as the 45 probably, if it's got the pitch roof or a setback. That seems like it aligns with what the council's trying to do and is approvable and can move on. Otherwise, we end up in an endless do loop, which Peyton hates because he's a software guy.
Well, I mean, I just think it's. I wrote down, it's shocking to me that we're into this much consumption of our collective hours over what I would consider 5 feet. I mean, if we were talking about an additional 50 feet, maybe, and then we're also into some very minor, what I would consider aesthetic judgments. And aesthetic judgments are interesting, but everyone has a different one. And everyone has a different idea of what a nice-looking building is, per se. And everyone might have a slightly different idea of what a downtown. Those mill buildings they weren't sloped normally. They were sort of flat. Yeah. And so if I were to hark back to mill buildings that were, consuming large swaths of downtown, those were pretty big and pretty flat.
I'm convincible. What are you saying? What's your motion?
I would go simplify.
So
I would go 4-story, 50. We don't do any of this, we don't constrain. There are architectural standards. I would say that it might make sense for us to look at those as another pass, because there are some things in there that we may want to review. But on this, I would go with the 4-story, 50 feet. There's been a lot of public input on that. A lot of people both supporting and coming out against it, and we're talking about feet, 4 feet, 3 feet. Some people start at 42 and then they got to 45. But that's where I would be as. I'm 50 feet, 4 stories. Keep it simple.
With no setback.
No setback.
So, question, this goes to Richard's point. Richard, is it the case that if we were to go with this, I'll call it Rob's, but also Doug's proposal, that you would view the prescriptive nature of it on the sloped roof as being restrictive in areas of the downtown where it's not really as needed as it might be in that small area that most people are most concerned about?
I didn't quite follow that, and it's not your fault at this point. It's mine.
In other words, this is overbroad. Is it going to apply to parts of downtown where it may be too constraining?
I really see it applying to 2 lots in town.
Yeah.
That the other ones are all built out, and they're not going to change.
Yeah.
Since everybody's given an opinion, but nobody wants to start the motion, I'm going to. What, was I getting interrupted, or?
No, I'm saying,
I'm going to move that we initiate.
What are we doing?
The proposal that the town, that the planning board proposed for 4 stories throughout the district, 50-foot max, without a conditional use option for the 5th floor. Because that's what because people were saying they don't want to include because if we don't do, because you didn't want to talk about that the original option that we sent back to the town, to the town council.
I agree. I'd leave out the 5th story
I would leave
discussion.
out,
Okay.
yeah.
So it'd be 4 stories throughout, no conditional use for a 5th, 50-foot maximum.
With our explanations and our backing as to why.
You just said no conditional use for 5th. You're saying no 5th story.
No 5th story.
Okay, that's because you just said we'll take away the conditional use for the 5th. It sounded funny there.
So it's the second hearing you held tonight.
Right.
Correct, yes.
Where it says proposed amendment to the setting maximum height in CB1 to 4 stories, 50 feet. 4 at 50.
4 at 50.
Okay. That's the motion?
That's the motion.
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by, any further discussion, or shall we take a vote?
Did you establish who's voting tonight?
Yes.
Alternates?
He did.
Okay.
There are no alternates
There are
voting
none
tonight.
I
All of our regular
Everyone's
members are
here.
here.
Oh, okay.
I would make one amendment to that, which is that there's a setback requirement if it's a flat roof at 50 feet, there's a setback requirement. And the reason we're doing that is, the reason I'm proposing that is saying it meets what we've got from professional input and it meets the beautiful thing. So it's 4 stories, 50 foot with the setback if it's a flat roof. If it's a pitch roof, a guy can still do the pitch roof all the way to 50 feet if he wants.
I'm not in favor of that. I say I would like to keep it simple. And I'd
All right,
like
so
to say.
that was an official
That was an
motion
amendment,
to modify.
A motion to modify, and if that's rejected.
And it
then
needs
so-
a second?
Any second on that?
And we're voting on the amendment first.
amendment.
And then the amended ordinance.
Right, so first we have to.
Yeah, so I'll second it so that we can get a vote rolling.
Okay.
on that.
So discussion on that. So Peyton said he's not in favor of it. Anybody else, anybody want to speak on that?
I mean, I'm in favor of it only in certain areas in the CB1. I don't think it's warranted throughout the entire CB1 district.
Well, the only way you can parse this, anything you do now is either all of CB1 or the easterly section in green on your map.
The easterly section.
And that's the area where it needs it the least, in my opinion.
And I think the notion,
But I think it's
if
just.
my amendment gets rejected, the notion is that people are relying upon the architectural standards to make sure it's a good-looking building in the
I was
end.
studying it earlier today.
Which is-
Yes.
Today, so it might. be
And I think the other is that you're relying on
Main Street.
someone that's spending
It's a bad
$50 million to build a building to have their aesthetic judgment and then bring that before us for a review, where they probably put some deep thought into that and they're hopefully and most likely using, design standards.
They're
they've used
certainly going to
before.
be alert to the issue at this stage, if they've paid any attention.
Yeah, all right.
we need to
Yeah, I
vote
think
on it.
limited
So we need
term
to-
and
let's
building
vote on the
a town, or
amendment.
Let's-
then
yes.
building a
Okay.
building that
All right,
doesn't.
so we're now going to take a vote on amendment.
downtown.
A yay vote adds the amendment to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. All right. Amendment was declined.
That's okay.
All right, are we ready to talk on a final motion, on the motion?
I would like
Yeah.
to note that it is after 10:30.
Thank you.
It's not new
Motion to
business, but thank
continue?
you.
We don't need
You don't
one.
need to do that.
That's the
Not
town
new
council.
business.
All right, all in favor of the motion?
Which is a four,
Which is 4 stories
4 stories.
throughout. No conditional use for a 5th story, no 5th story option at all, and 50-foot maximum.
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Nobody? All right. Now, we need to tell the town council why. So with regards to the memo, let's see so I want to thank Peyton. I drafted this. I had Peyton proofread it. He made a couple of tweaks. So thank you for that.
Oh, Mr. Chair, before you do that, we should have a second vote
All right.
to recommend against the council's motion.
Got it. All right. Motion
And then,
to-
I'm sorry, and that also includes the original one. So recommend rejection of the original one and rejection of council's modification.
Well, do we want to reject the, do we want to reject the original one which maintained the 5th story by conditional use?
Well, you can only send them one, you've got to send them one specific recommendation.
Well,
What you
then
want.
why do we need to deny 2?
I think for clarity, because otherwise it's kind of hanging.
Because
out there.
I would,
But I have a question. They didn't send that back. They sent back a modification. So
Yeah.
the first one is dead.
Well,
Tabled that one.
Never.
Didn't they table it?
No, they just modified it and sent back. I mean, the original one and their changes are still kind of hanging out there. I mean, it's implied that you're rejecting it, but
because I definitely want to reject their modification, but I would still support the original one we sent.
But it didn't
well,
have a height
maybe
in
then
it,
don't-
though, did it?
Maybe then don't comment on that.
Was it
and
just not a height?
that- Oh, right, that's right. So, well, the
Hold on.
council's going to do what they want to do anyway.
You would,
Why are we here?
now I'm lost. You're saying that there's another, the
No, it's
fifth,
the
sto-
original one.
There was the original
original
one,
one,
which
which
was
is
just
always
getting
there.
rid of the green easterly
I'm saying,
area
yeah.
to 5 stories
but
by conditional
we shouldn't be
use.
telling the council 2 things we're recommending. Let's
No.
reject that. if
Okay.
That's
it's-
right.
I agree.
Just, we'll reject that.
Then let's reject, all right, then motion to reject the original, the town council's amendment and its original.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Heather. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That
Yeah.
was 7-0?
7,
Okay.
7-0. All right. So in that case, this still hasn't pushed you. Thank you. And now,
Did we?
all right, so that means that with regards to this,
I thought it was actually pretty good. Are you asking for more tweaking? I don't think.
I'm asking if there's anything in here people think need to be tweaked. Should be one thing. All right, in the second paragraph, are you going to work? No, you're not going to work. All right, I cannot edit while I'm projecting with this thing for
The
whatever
second
reason.
paragraph should just go away. We just rejected that whole notion.
Yeah, so we'll need to take that second paragraph out. And then what about the rest of it?
Thank you for zooming in.
The only thing I didn't like is there was one line in there about the town saying we don't want students, and I don't think that's correct. It's,
We can't say that anymore because students
that
are a protected
should not
class.
be in there.
Yeah,
is it in
it
the
says-
top paragraph?
No, what it is the primary reason to allow fifth story is parking. Parking is the key element for any modest or luxury apartment. Without including a provision for parking as part of the building height ordinance, Durham is telling non-students that we don't want them here.
But we're not saying that, so I don't think.
Well,
I think
we
it'd be
can't.
better to stay positive.
I would say, yeah, I
So-
don't want to use, I don't want any word that has the word student in it.
But-
Because
I
if
think you
you,
could just go straight to
That
the,
paragraph should go away too,
This is
when
sort
I'm
of
talking about.
Okay, we can kill that paragraph. And we could kill the one after it too, because that's also talking about
Students, commuters?
5 stories.
The whole paragraph is unnecessary.
residents,
'cause it's
new
talking about
residents.
parking.
Just say new residents.
Okay.
So my question is, why are we even talking about the fifth floor?
Because at the time, my intent, I was hoping that we'd be able to keep that 5th story by
Yeah,
conditional
we-
use on the table,
We're not going to.
okay? And I fully expect that there are counselors on the town council who've told me they want us to be able to do 5 stories. So I expect that we're going to circle back in the future to positively identify a 5-story zone.
Yeah.
That's a completely separate thing, yes.
I
As a
live in a
separate
world
thing.
of
And while we're
incremental
cutting
progress.
sentences,
So we're going to cut 3 paragraphs out of this.
But we need,
it's so much
yeah.
easier to edit than it is to create. Right?
Well,
Durham does not exist in a bubble.
Yeah.
That really doesn't add anything to the statement, and really, I'm sorry, but it's the sentence that
Oh, that's why I
follows
can't
that's-
change
yeah, say Durham's
That's most
development.
Never mind. I can see
You cut
that.
it all.
All right. No,
that's important.
I forget, the reason I can't edit is I'm in my,
If you get rid of the bubble.
You're in this.
I'm in this, I'm not in the, I'm not in my writer. That's the problem. And that's, if I do this,
Although my kids call it the bubble.
okay.
they call Durham the bubble.
Now I'm in the version I can edit.
Okay.
We are in a safe
And they say
little
New
bubble.
Hampshire's the second one. They're in a bubble within a bubble.
Yeah, Durham's development dollars are competing against projects, and I think that's, yeah, get rid of the bubble thing, communities, counties, and agencies. And the state is definitely trying to bring more business here and is having a difficult time.
All right, so we're down to this.
I would also say that the 50 feet, as recommended by, we've heard architects, and we've heard from the
Architects,
business community,
businesses.
that it will provide the ability to have first-class accommodations, both for our retail and for the living spaces. Maybe first class is also a crappy
Well, no, I said
word, but
quality, high quality. This will provide
Quality? Just say
future-
quality.
Yeah, well, I would say high quality retail space and competitive living space, because people, it's not, it's about the retail space that we're going to get, which is going to be, could be game changing.
And, 50 feet's not a build to, it's a max.
Yeah.
Right? You
Yeah.
build to what you need. And one of the reasons I was going into that whole business about how deep can you make your basement is if I can't get 12 feet down, I can only get 8 feet down, and I got to raise, I can't start my first floor till I'm 3 feet above the road, then I need that extra 3 feet.
You also got, I
Another way
mean,
he's going to have parking there is have he's going to have to dig out 5 feet, have an 8-foot base when they drive in there.
the other thing, though, is Durham is
could be doable,
recognizing
but it's-
that there are
And
apartments
that's my
downtown.
point. So another thing that we're going to need to address in the future is we need to can really consider allowing parking on the first floor.
The other thing, though, just as a FYI, I mean, the town council and Todd discussed the fact that existing apartments that were trying to attract anyone wanted parking, which was the reason why Todd went forward with 24-hour parking vouchers, or whatever they're called. And so the fact that in general Durham didn't have 24-hour parking anywhere, we expanded that to allow that. Now, I mean, obviously parking downtown would be awesome underneath a building, but if buildings that can't, we should also still be discussing potential areas for 24-hour
there are
parking.
options.
And these are things that we'll deal with. So
Yeah.
how's that last sentence now? This will provide future buildings with flexibility to create a variety of building exteriors and interior
And
designs.
quality,
I was going to say, comma, with quality.
with quality retail space, because the retail space, everyone always forgets about. They talk about who's going to be living there, they forget who's going to be doing business there.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is super important to have.
We have
And
to say.
just to be clear, the 4
bubble, I
stories is
didn't pick
measured
up
from the
on that.
front of the building. The sidewalk in the front is where that 4 stories is measured. It's not measured from the parking lot side on the buildings we're talking about. So 4 stories measured from the sidewalk in the front.
Yeah, so if
So
there's
if
a
somebody
little
wants
bit of
to
bump up
dig
for-
in and
to
put a,
dig, yeah.
and they get 4.5 on the other side, that would be, in my interpretation, okay.
Is that accurate, Michael?
Say that again?
So the building heights in the central business district, is it measured from the sidewalk or is it measured based on the average
It
foundation?
says the front of the building in the ordinance.
It's the average
Oh.
foundation.
Well, the way the building height,
It says front of the building.
Well,
Because you're imagining a situation where in the back they might build down. right?
Exactly.
Actually
There
expose
could
the
be
basement.
there could be a few feet, yeah, there could be
And
some.
then do you count that 50 starting there, or do you count it starting here?
You count the 50 from the sidewalk in the front.
well, it says building height is measured as the vertical distance from the mean elevation of the finished grade, 6 feet offset from the building
Are you
foundation.
thinking about the town
around
council's
the
special
perimeter.
definition?
Say that again.
read that again,
So
please.
this is, it's measured through everywhere, measured as the vertical distance from the mean elevation of the finished grade, 6 feet offset from the building foundation around the perimeter of the building. And then to the following points,
So
E
do you
line,
lose
midpoint.
a foot or two if you're measuring
Oh,
that?
sorry?
Do you lose?
You are. It sounds like you are.
You're
And-
losing several feet of building height,
Yeah.
which is the other reason we need 50.
So another reason
we,
for 50.
we can tackle that some other night.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're going to do it now.
Because it's a valid point. If we're afforded the ability to come off that parking lot, lose a stall, but gain an entrance to a much larger building parking garage,
Accessory
we
use.
want that, yeah.
Oh, well, then there's another provision where there's more than an 8-foot difference in elevation, the 6-foot offset, the mean elevation, well, it's calculated separately for different sides.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We can park that one.
I think I have an editorial improvement to your letter.
Okay.
Because this is what I do for a living.
Oh, boy.
Is the second paragraph, is that where it ends right now?
Yes.
I think you take the last sentence from the first paragraph, started.
This will provide future buildings?
Yep,
And put it where?
cut that, move it to a third paragraph, no, at the very bottom, but before that, you start with something to the extent of the planning board recommends this because.
Of the quality of blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's because this will provide future buildings with flexibility. That's good.
Probably need developers of, right?
the recommends this amendment, I guess, is probably.
Provide developers of future buildings with, like,
No, don't say developers.
Should we delegate this to Paul to get that right?
Get it tweaked.
Well,
Send it
is this
over
good?
here.
Is this good?
I'm sorry, I know, I'm holding.
She just
a
has one
copy.
more word in there.
Let's do it right now.
Move the
computer over here and let her do the typing,
Well, it's just, you're just wanting to put, the planning board recommends this
This amendment.
This amendment.
The most valuable new
Got it.
ever.
Yeah.
Just let Emma write it.
I'm sorry.
No, this is great.
You know, when you,
Julie, we can have you and Julie. You are now director of planning board communications.
Perfect.
I mean, this is,
Not
I'm
this,
literally
because
a
it-
communications manager, so.
there you go. Why don't you delete everything? Why don't you just say,
Perfect.
recommends this amendment
Because it will provide, I
to
think this is fine.
encourage the creation of a variety, and then you cut a whole lot.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
It will encourage,
To
no, no.
To
Yeah.
encourage a variety.
Yep.
Of future buildings.
Of future building exteriors, yeah. That's great.
But future.
Get the of future building exteriors, a variety of future buildings.
Get rid
Okay.
of the comma after designs while we're doing this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Last sentence.
It's good to have all of our input.
Yeah.
No.
this is why I didn't want to do it by email chain.
this is actually pretty, this is probably the.
No, this has been,
Most
ex-
As long as it
painless.
needs to be.
this has been extremely effective, is what it's been.
Yeah.
And you have click
All right,
say.
delete the word "to" in the first line. Requested the planning board review, not to review.
And now we're
Town
going
council
into government
requests the
speak.
planning board review, you could get rid of it.
No, that would be, if you ask the planning board.
You could, yeah,
Council
yeah.
requested the planning board. Well, you could go either way on that, but
You could go either way.
we'll go with yours.
Yeah, stronger to
So
that.
ask Emma, which way is
So
better?
Paul, we're going to defer the EV thing, obviously.
You're
Obviously,
definitely gonna
yes.
defer the.
All right,
Do we have
so
anything else to talk about today?
is this is now
Good.
satisfies our needs?
Sorry, I did not.
Don't apologize again. Simply
Believe me, you don't realize how painless this was.
Never apologize.
You have no idea.
Oh, wait till you see a
Well, I really
good
thought I'd
meeting.
show up tonight and I would keep my mouth
apologize.
a lot more shut
No,
than
you
this.
never
bad.
apologize.
Oh, I can't wait for an next zoning.
For a wordsmith,
Okay.
that
He's like,
was the easiest thing we've ever
gosh,
had.
yeah.
They're usually extremely.
You should see us
Wait
when we're
until we
doing.
talk about landscape buffering.
That's where we want to go.
So I will email Todd this tomorrow, and he'll pass it on to the council. And I can let Todd know that you'll be sending a letter, or we'll have a letter separately.
You're going to have this in your inbox before you get
All right,
upstairs.
so I'll send that letter from the board with my note to Todd.
Always forget this.
Is that all the business we have tonight, Mr. Chairman?
Do we need to
The
say,
minutes can wait.
Yeah.
motion to adjourn?
Congratulations, you've made a start.
Yeah.
Second.
Lady Sarah, thank you, Ron.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, now I need to find it.
Word.
Either way.
Now, basically lynch mob.
And when you're